Evening, everyone. We have Pastor Ron, I believe. Yes, would you please lead us in a prayer?
Let's pray. Father, we just thank you for, again, the blessings of living in a free country. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to have a meeting such as this. Lord, I pray for each of these council members and their families. Lord, I pray that you just bless them for their time that they're investing into our community. Lord, we just pray that your presence will prevail here, Lord, that every thought, every word that's spoken will be, Lord, will be one that is edifying to each other, Lord, that we're thinking and we're respecting one another. So, Lord, I just pray for each person here. Just bless this meeting and let them have a great meeting in you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. I'd like to officially open the meeting. Marie, would you lead us in a pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any public hearings tonight. We do have one special presentation, and it is an important one for the community. I'd like to have a few opening remarks, and then John is going to follow those remarks with a pathway that has taken us to tonight's presentation. And then the community would like to introduce Ken Gorman from a company called Power Wellness. In 1998, there was a citizens group in Rolla that initiated an effort to build a health and recreation center. That group led to ballot initiatives, one in '99, the other one in 2000. And we went to the taxpayers twice, one to ask for the enactment of a sales tax with a sunset provision to build a health and recreation facility, and then a second ballot initiative to allow us to incur the indebtedness or to issue the bonds that would be secured with that tax revenue. That resulted in two facilities, the Splash Zone facility and the center as we now know it today. The center was approximately $9.5 million, and at the time it was a stated goal and supported by the citizens that the citizens would build the facility, but ultimately the users would pay for its operation. Since 2002, we've achieved a recapture rate, depending on the year, between 75 and 88%. And that's one of the highest, if not the highest, recapture rates that we have found in municipal-owned facilities like this. That facility is run with sound accounting, so there's no shuffling of monies to hide expenses. By the same token, there's no philanthropic foundation or sugar daddy behind the scenes to subsidize those operations. We're proud of that record. Over the years, we've had 3.1 million citizens walk through that door. And on any given day of the week, in excess of 350 citizens use that facility. Whether you're a user or not, we should be very proud of this facility. How many cities our size in an outstate area like ours have a facility that's paid for, that looks as good as it did the day that was opened, and provides such a wide breadth and depth of programming? It's more than just a gym, and it's been more than just a place to lift weights. I often repeat this next point, and I'm going to keep repeating it. There are some who believe the general fund or park tax money has been used to subsidize the center. That has never, ever been the case. There has not been one dime transferred from the general fund or the park tax to support any part of that center. That is a fact, and somebody can fact check it all you want. If anything, it's worth noting that the money has actually transferred in the other direction. Approximately $75,000 per year is transferred from the rec center and those users to the general fund to pay administrative overhead costs associated, some with and some not with, the particular facilities. So there's been over $1.1 million that over the years have been transferred to City Hall. At the present time, though, we've come to a fork in the road. The center over the years has run into more competitors, whether it's Planet Fitness or Anytime Fitness or any of the other smaller places that have started. The university, on at least 2 occasions, have gone through expansions of their own facility, and all of that has put pressure on membership and our ability to retain members and generate associated revenues. The industry has also gotten much more sophisticated in a lot of ways, and the models that exist today, once you leave the traditional municipal facilities, is a model based on medical integration, and that term is something you're going to hear about multiple times tonight. In the past 2 years, the Citizens Advisory Board for the center has worked very, very hard with one goal in mind, and that goal has been to achieve fiscal sustainability for the center. Lots of options were identified. Each and every one of those were studied and assessed. And after going through all those, the first conclusion that we came for is the best path forward is to, one, to partner with somebody that has a proven track record and the expertise to take us to the next level. And that's what tonight is about. Tonight is the public opening, if you will, of a conversation with Power Wellness. And I'll let them describe their background and their depth and breadth themselves. We look at this as a strategic partner for a good reason. It's beyond just fiscal sustainability. We're also going to open up a new dynamic to the community and to start looking at such things as community health. Nationwide, our healthcare model is not sustainable. I don't think anybody could argue that particular point. And it's been well documented that if society could just focus on 5 basic diseases, all attributable to lifestyle, obesity, diabetes, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, and things like that, we would lop off a whole lot from our national healthcare cost. As civic leaders, we're mindful of that. So if we could achieve fiscal sustainability with the center and enhance the community health, that's a win-win, and that's the path that we're embarking on. So tonight is a coming out party, if you will. After 2 years of work and 4 or 5 months of very hard work identifying a particular strategic partner, we're ready to bring this out for the community to assess. So I'm going to transfer it over to John to talk about what process we used to come till tonight, and then we would like to introduce the owner and representative of Power Wellness.
Thank you, Mayor. A number of us over the last 15 years or so have attended what's called the Athletic Business Conference. It's a conference held either in New Orleans or in Florida, and it's really the conference, the national conference, geared towards private fitness clubs. So while we every year participate in the National Parks and Recreation Association conferences, with a traditional parks background, athletic business does the opposite. It's very much a private business modeled seminar conference program. This past November, Marcy from the Rec Center and Dr. Bill Moorkamp, who's been a member of the advisory committee for 20 years, approaching 20 years, attended the conference and came back with his introduction of medical integration and really with our wellness. One of the tours on that week, 3-day conference was a tour of a medical health fitness facility that Power Wellness happened to be managing. And that was the first introduction. So they came back, shared that information with the mayor and I. We sat down with the Rec Center Advisory Committee, talked a little bit about that opportunity, brought that to the council at the time. It was really in January, late December, January, and council gave us the authority to go and do a formal solicitation of proposals. So we issued that in January for medically integration, Rec Center management operations, sent them directly to about a dozen facilities that I was able to identify across the country. It's still an emerging business and industry. There's not a lot of these companies that are out there, but we reached out to them directly. We received 4 proposals. We received those in late January, And pretty quickly, we were able to shortlist that to 2 firms, Power Wellness and WTS, 2 excellent companies. We brought them both in for interviews, and after another 3 or 4 weeks of doing some background recommendations, we came to the City Council and recommended that we proceed with further diligence on Power Wellness. And that's really what we've been doing since almost the April timeframe. We've had some additional operational analysis done at the rec center. With Power Wellness' support, we did a customer, both current and former, interview and survey, and that provided information. So while we were doing all this additional discerning of their expertise, I think they were spending a similar amount of time trying to really understand the Rolla market, the rec center, the history here. And that's really brought us to today, as we've now been working on a draft contract for services. As the mayor said, we would like to have this public conversation, and then we will move into some detailed conversations on contract negotiations, and we'll do that in closed session tonight. No action taken, but we want to be able to sort of roll up our sleeves and look at the details of a contract and how a contract management proposal of not just operating the rec center, but bring that medical integration as a part of that. So if it all goes forward, July we'll have public input, and then by August, hopefully have council taking some action on this matter.
Thank you, John. So with that, I would like the community to welcome Ken Gorman.
Hello, Council. How are you? Thank you for the nice introduction, Lou and John. The mic's working okay from here?
Yes, but
You got to speak up. Just
Speak up.
I want to make sure I hit the right button to get this loaded. It's not popping up on the screen yet. I did.
Just takes a little while to load.
There we go.
It's popped up.
Perfect. Thanks again. Good evening, council members and residents of Rolla. My name is Ken Gorman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Power Wellness. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this evening's meeting, and for the many months that we've spent together getting to know the staff and to know the leadership. And we've been very impressed. It's been a wonderful process, transparent process, and we've been treated extremely fairly the entire way. So I just want you to know we do this a lot. We've been doing this for 24 years, and this has been a terrific process you've undertaken here. I know there's a large agenda tonight with several important presentations. I'm going to try to keep our presentation to about 20 minutes. Thanks. I'll provide a brief overview of the company. There is a lot of information that's been provided in a very detailed proposal. I'm sure that's available to council, but we can also provide copies of tonight's presentation if you didn't get it already. We will also spend more time, though, on what we see as a strategic vision, building a little bit upon what Lou was talking about, what we see as the path forward for the center. The information is intended to really complement what we've already provided, and I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end if there's any questions from council, but I know you have a very full agenda. We begin every meeting at our company with a reaffirmation of our purpose and values. We improve life by delivering excellence in health, fitness, and wellness management. These are critical words and statements that truly help unite our company across 14 states, 3,200 employees. And they truly help drive our employee behavior at all of our locations. While each value has particular meaning, humility truly sums up the behavior that we want every Power Wellness team member to adhere to and to truly believe in. We are here to serve, whether it's clients like yourselves, whether it's members, of which we serve 120,000 members nationwide, or each other within our own company. Emerging from the COVID pandemic these last 3 months, this particular value has assumed an even larger meaning for all of us. When we founded Power Wellness in 1996, I did not dream at the time it would become the organization that it has. It's really been growing through just organic growth, doing the right thing every day, truly trying to put ourselves in our clients' shoes and help them grow their businesses. We're a third-party management company. and we partner with municipalities, health systems, community colleges, nationwide doing this. Today we are the largest, as we say, institutional fitness management company, and that institution referring to organizations and community and governmental entities. We have, as I said, 120,000 members that we are serving as of March. All of our centers did close during closure, as the center did, and we've now reopened 22 of those locations. In total, we have 36 operating centers across the country like that. One of the statistics that's not on this screen is something that's really important to me, and that's safety. And that's ever more present these days as we're monitoring every employee and every member that's coming in and out of our centers. Since the reopenings I was just sharing, we had 90,000 visits, and we've only had a handful of contact tracing events. We take it very seriously. Two stats that I think are really important in terms of just safety as we measure them is last year we had only 25 general liability claims and workers' compensation claims. And when you think about 5 million member visits that we took care of last year, it's a very low number. And everybody, we really strive that we have a safe environment for the members, because we're taking care of, in many locations, a little bit more of an at-risk deconditioned population. Lou was talking about medical integration. I'll talk about that in a minute. But we have a lot of older members who use our centers, and a lot of folks with chronic diseases, and safety is clearly very important. Doesn't mean we don't have fantastic programs for youth, for Gen X's, for the boomers. It's a wide population, and so we take that quite seriously. So two stats I think are just important to note. Oops, hang on, go one down. This slide represents some of the brands of our managed centers. It's important to note that the Power Wellness brand is not anywhere and is not promoted. We truly are what we say is a white label company, working on behalf of our clients, promoting their brand, promoting their business operations. This has been a precept of ours since day one. That's an important differentiator between our company and others out there that tend to promote their brand concurrent often with their clients. In our case, it's really about promoting the City of Rolla's brand and what they're trying to accomplish with your community. And so we focus our staff on that issue. Behind the scenes, of course, we provide all the programming, the business systems, accounting, marketing, and of course, the on-site staff as a full-service solution. Power Wellness has managed many of these locations for the last 20-some years. Center for Northwestern Medicine and Loyola University were two of our first clients and are still with us today after many renewals of those contracts. That doesn't happen by happenstance or because they happen to like the reports. It happens because we meet simple, objective metrics with our contracts every year. And I think that's very important. Part of our contract with the City of Rolla would have quantitative metrics that we need to meet in order to earn our fees. In addition, several of the clients up here have engaged Power Wellness to manage multiple locations for them. On Northwestern Medicine, we run 5 centers. They're a premier health system in the Chicago area. We run 4 centers for a large foundation in Michigan called 5 Healthy Towns, and 5 centers for the Mercy Health System in Cincinnati. Some of these have been added on to over the years because of performance on original contracts that we had. In addition to our values, our company growth is really as a result of a unique client approach. What you see across the slide is really our 5 operating principles that we work with our clients on. Embracing your core values. We have our own, but we also understand that every one of our clients has their values. This might manifest itself in us asking the team members on site or new team members we hire to go through cross-training with like a new onboarded City of Rolla, so they're aware of what you're all about as a city. The second is really customer satisfaction. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this in a minute, but we have very high standards relative to customer satisfaction. It's measured daily, it's measured quarterly, it's measured annually in large surveys. I'll be sharing some of the results of the first survey that we did with your members that Lou and John were referring to earlier. Enhancing your brand, we believe that this is a wonderful community asset and has a lot of potential, and I'll be sharing that in the strategic vision. Lou talked about financial sustainability. That is a goal of every one of our locations in terms of how to achieve that. And you're starting in a very good place. You no longer have any debt on the facility. You don't have any rent on the facility. We need to make sure that it's able to cover the net operating income. And finally, the medical integration. This is really a differentiator from traditional gyms in the market. This is a differentiator from the student fitness center at the university. It's something that you would be the only medically integrated facility in the 6 counties and maybe even farther. And I think this will be very interesting to the large healthcare provider network that you have in your market. So how will Power Wellness impact the center? Our strategic vision really has 4 principles. For the past few months, we have reviewed a significant amount of information about the center, including financial statements, program descriptions, marketing information, and of course an exhaustive survey that we just completed. We also did conduct some stakeholder interviews with key players to really understand what their vision might be, including healthcare providers in the area and others. The first is achieving financial independence. It's a nice way of saying that at one point that subsidy that's been there needs to be wound down, and hopefully there's a profit within a couple of years coming from that facility that can feed other needed services in the community. The center relies on dues, monthly dues right now, and program revenues to sustain its business operations. As Lou said, over the past few years, both of these sources have declined, and that's led to the deficit that you have each year. There is no easy button to reverse this. But with improvements in programming, technology, service, and strategic partnerships, there is a path forward to achieve it. The impact of our efforts will likely take 12 to 18 months to get things turned around. As I said, there isn't an easy button. We've done 22 transitions like this. Each one's unique, each takes time, each takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of collaboration with the staff on site and the leadership from the city. Community pride, fostering community pride. The center is a high-quality, well-maintained facility and actually has very positive member engagement from those who are using it regularly. The survey came out with high marks, and I'll share that in just a few minutes. Our second goal is to revive community involvement and pride in the center, once again, from a much larger demographic. And I'll talk about some of the programming that we'll develop and deploy to do that. We'll accomplish this through expanded programs and offerings and really try to meet the needs of a broader demographic. The third is strategic partnerships. We'll create partnerships that leverage the center's physical plant and the staff resources that are there. These partnerships might include healthcare providers, local employers, the school district, and more. Arrangements might include on- and off-site programming that we deliver at local employers. It might include workforce training. It might include joint efforts on local causes, local philanthropic causes, all furthering community impact. And fourth is really improving quality of life. This is right in our purpose statement that I read at the very top, which really drives all of our behavior as a company and all the folks who work with us. If the COVID pandemic has taught us anything, it is the importance of physical health. Our most vulnerable populations suffered the worst and continue to suffer as a result of this pandemic. Conditions like obesity, diabetes, heart disease have led to a lot higher death rate, and it's all preventable through lifestyle changes. We believe the center can have a positive impact on those at-risk deconditioned populations. I'll talk about the strategies for medical integration in just a few minutes and how we will accomplish that. We'll measure our efforts, though, qualitatively and quantitatively. Measurement metrics will include customer surveys, center utilization, and health assessments, something that's not being done right now at the center. Hopefully in another year or two we'll come back with some very positive news on all of that if we're so fortunate to get engaged. One of the reasons our clients have outsourced management of their operations is subject matter expertise. Our organization is exclusively focused on the management of institutional fitness centers. Our organizational structure, our home office departments, employee training and benefits, and business systems have been designed to enhance our clients' operations. This allows our clients to focus on delivery of what they do: police, fire, airports, sanitation, streets. Not a retail business. This is still a retail business that requires a mindset that is focused on it, frankly, every day. At our home office in Lombard, we have a support team of over 70 subject matter experts that will support the center staff. Those represent the 8 or 9 departments in the center of the circle. By not having those staff at the center, we run a much more efficient, lean operation on site. And more importantly, we let the folks on site who have degrees in kinesiology or rec management focus on what they do best, not doing marketing, not coming up with new collateral, not doing Facebook posts, not doing accounting, not helping with the IT systems. It allows them to strictly work on what they are credentialed in and what they frankly like to do, which is enhance the member experience, deliver great programs, and increase utilization. Talk a little bit about one of the core precepts, which is customer satisfaction or customer loyalty. It's very important. We measure this frequently to ensure we are performing above and beyond our members' and our clients' expectations. We use a system called the Net Promoter Score system. This is used almost exclusively in all retail-type businesses. NPS, or Net Promoter Score, essentially relies on one key question: how likely are you to refer this business, the center, to a family member or a friend? We look at the promoters, which score a 9 out of 10 on that question, less detractors, which are 1 to 5, and that gives you a percentage score. So unlike in school, where a 70 would be something our parents would be very happy about, in the Net Promoter Score system, that's an excellent score. Power of Wellness overall is 69% across the board for our centers. When we measured the center using these questions as part of the recent survey, it scored a 57%. We know there's improvement to be made, but there's also a lot of positives that are going on, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Just to put it in perspective, 70%, 72% is where the likes of Nordstrom or Apple or USA Insurance score. So again, that's a very good score, and we believe the center has the potential to clearly go up in that category with some work. What are some of the strengths that we heard in the survey? We retained Edelman Research Group, an independent research company, to do a survey of 2,900 members, and this was done in May. We received responses from about 350 members and ex-members, so it was a good response rate, particularly since the center was closed when this was going on. And it had a sampling error of about 5.7% with a 95% confidence. So we felt very good with the responses we got back and able to digest this. This is just a very small sampling I'm going to share with you of what we heard, kind of the strengths and areas for improvement. Some key takeaways. Member satisfaction overall was an 8.4 out of 10. Member value was perceived at an 8.2 out of 10. Staff friendliness and availability were consistently in all departments above 8 out of 10. And the areas that got the most use were cardio equipment, the track, the pools, and the strength equipment. The survey also revealed a number of areas that need additional focus. Land group exercise classes could be improved, amenity maintenance, fitness floor staff engagement, and the fitness equipment service turnaround times. These are some of the things we heard from the members. As part of our transition plan, our team would review, digest, and respond to all the information we received from the ARG survey. Going forward, this same survey will be conducted every fall to gauge ongoing member feedback. And we'd use a much shorter survey on a daily basis, randomly, of those folks who are using it. Kind of a happy, sad face, like you might if you took an Uber ride. We'll also do some periodic surveys that would look at sort of the typical member journey. So 7 days after they enrolled, 30 days later, 60 days later. So we have a very strong member engagement platform that uses technology to make sure we're getting that kind of feedback. The center already provides a number of great programs, and this is a service upgrade that we'll be talking about. We want to expand the programming that's being done at the center. Youth and families will find expanded offerings built around an already robust summer camp and swim programming with a focus on creating year-round wellness habits that carry over as they grow up. Kids yoga, learning to move, coloring your plate education. Young adults and Gen X will find new and exciting programs with the addition of Les Mills. This is a nationally licensed program. It's pretty exciting for that age group. And fitness technology like MyZone, which is a heart rate monitoring technology, which I'll talk about in a minute. Older adults will benefit by special population programs and enhanced fitness floor staff presence. Generating more social-based programs will also be an attractive way of deepening engagement for an entire aging population. I'm going to talk now a little bit about the medical integration. I could go on for a very long time for this, but I'm going to try to keep this short and succinct, but clearly I'm available to answer more questions to staff as needed. Core to our mission is improving lives. We will deploy our proprietary programs inside the center that will allow us to help combat the chronic disease and improve the well-being of the community in a direct and focused way. Typically, we partner with local health systems, clinicians, and even health insurance payers to create an extension of their medical care programs. Through our proven systems, we can impact the direct health of the citizens of Rolla. These are the 6 precepts of how we do medical integration. It starts with the formation of a medical advisory committee. We currently manage 23 MACs, as we call them. These meet quarterly, and these are engaged clinicians in the market, from primary care to orthopedics to physical therapists, and we will look to create a MAC committee like this to help steer the medical programming here. The second is integrated technologies. We have to find a way to talk to clinicians about their patients, and it has to be in a HIPAA-compliant system because they're going to be sharing protected health information about potentially their patients. We have a HIPAA-compliant system that we use and has been deployed with our clients, so referrals can come into us and we can share how their patient's doing in a diabetes program at the center, for example. We also have a general membership health assessment that we will deploy. Every new member will be encouraged to go through this process, and certainly any participants in our clinical programs would go through that process. We then also do a lot of reassessments every year. So now we have a way of sharing with a participant what's their current health status, and 6 months later, did they make improvements? We also can share an aggregated de-identified data to you, the City Council, how your entire population is beginning to do. Are they improving from having the center and using the center every day? That's sort of the health outcomes. I'm going to talk about number 4 in a little bit in a slide in just a minute, so I'll save that one. If we do all that very well, we try to culminate that in a certification from the Medical Fitness Association. This is a national group that represents medical fitness centers around the country, and there's a rigorous certification process that they go through. It not only certifies as great programming, it really certifies the safety of what the center's doing. And I think that would be a terrific goal for the center to help differentiate it to yourselves and, most importantly, to the community residents. This is an example of prescriptive fitness pathways that we use. You see here 10 different programs. These are all 8-week programs. These are referred by physicians for their patient to engage. As Lou said, we have a terrible problem in this country. We spend trillions of dollars a year on chronic disease management and mental health, many of which are treatable through lifestyle change. That's exactly what these pathways are intending to do. So if you have a diabetic, can we move that individual to a pre-diabetes stage? If you have a individual who's getting hip replacement surgery, maybe we need to get that individual stronger and a little more flexible before they get their hip replacement, and then take care of them after they get their hip replacement along with physical therapy. So that's what all of these programs do, and clearly obesity is addressed as part of a weight management platform as well. These are 8-week programs. Again, they start with a referral from their physician. Assessment data is shared back with the physician, and at the end of the program, the reassessment is shared back with the physician, so the clinician is engaged in how their patient is doing. What's really exciting is that this is only a $99 program, and in many cases, we're getting Medicare Advantage or some third-party payers to offset some of that, or even the local employer. Community integration through events and special programs. We have many special programs and events that can be customized to fit the needs and wants of the Rolla community. Similar to the Easter egg hunt in the pool, we can expand a monthly calendar to include seasonal themes, which might appeal to many residents. Examples might include a farmer's market or a harvest festival, holiday-themed gatherings, summer kids kickoff parties, fall tailgates, world's largest swim lesson we do at one of our centers. It's a really fun event, and youth swimming expose. In addition, expanded community garden and healthy eating programs could be developed for the community to take part in. Members at our centers appreciate the mobile technology that we offer. This is a screenshot of a typical app that we deploy at all of our locations. Members can use the app for a variety of functions, from account changes to class scheduling to check-ins and feedback. This app has been particularly helpful in the COVID crisis, where in most of our locations we have capacity limitations. And so we're using this app so people can easily make an online reservation to use the lap pool or to be in a class that might have a capacity of 8 or 10. Another technology upgrade will be a new website to improve marketing and prospective member engagement. In our world today, your digital presence directly affects the success of your business. We plan to redesign and integrate the center's website and expand the way it reaches through the community through effective social media. This deeper connection will further pull residents into a healthy living pathway. I mentioned earlier the heart rate monitoring technology. This is something that will benefit the tech-savvy and socially engaged exerciser. It's a product called MyZone, and essentially it's a heart rate monitor that you purchase and you wear, and then you'll see large TV screens in different areas of the center that will monitor how you're doing. Particularly helpful in a group exercise program, so the instructor knows if you're sort of getting to the maximal heart rate area or if you're not quite getting there, and they can push you a little bit more or back you off if need be. So it really gives them insight to how the participant, how the class is really doing. To our knowledge, none of the existing local fitness centers have this system yet. Lastly, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about at-home and remote programming. This service can be available for residents and members. As our nation emerges from the pandemic within this new normal, people will expect their wellness options to be delivered differently. This expanded service creates an opportunity for more access to helpful programs and expert information. These streaming and on-demand programs address content focused on exercise, wellness, and lifestyle upgrades. We'll have curated content that will be delivered by national experts, but more importantly, we're going to have content from the local instructors. It's not as highly produced, but they like making that connection with the instructor that they're used to seeing. This provides a variety of highly produced sort of scientific-backed content and the trusted base of the center that they're used to seeing. While this is convenient for area residents, it will be vital to helping engage a more rural-based population or home-confined population that can't get to the center 1 or 2 days a week. In conclusion, we truly believe in the potential of this important asset. We're committed to the 4 strategic goals I mentioned earlier: financial independence, community pride, quality of life, and strategic partnerships. Thank you for your time this evening. We appreciate the transparent process that's been conducted, and we look forward to helping you realize the full potential of this fantastic community asset.
Thank you very much, Ken. We allowed in the schedule tonight some opportunities for council questions if you have any. We just would like to remind you to be mindful that in a closed session, it's a place where we want to talk about numbers and contract terms and things like that. But with respect to the company, with respect to their programs and offerings, any questions? David?
I've got one. we've kind of historically marketed our center as kind of a community center space. There's art programs that go on there. We've always had a public space available for a warming station, those kinds of things. In reality, there's been a little bit of difficulty for those that don't have the money to get into the space, but I know we've marketed as a community center to be able to have some of that kind of thing. So I was wondering if you could tell us how this program would or would not support people in our community who want access to some of these amenities offered at the center, but can't afford membership or healthcare. I mean, around here, some people can't even afford healthcare, which is be tied into this. That includes at-risk youth, including seniors on a fixed income with little disposable income, et cetera.
Good question. David? Is it?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Very good question. So first thing we'll want to understand is what are the current programs that are being done at the center, how the space is being utilized, and let's make sure we don't lose some of the great things that have been going on at the center. The staff has worked hard there for many years. You have some very long tenured staff there. I'm sure they have ideas of what's been working and some of the things that should be changed. So the first thing is we're going to digest all that information. We have great examples from our 36 different centers of programs that work. So we'll look at what's working at other locations and then talk to the staff about that and then begin to try certain programs here that we think might be a fit.
Are there any programs at any other places that do involve those kinds of things, folks? I mean, sometimes we've had kind of a budget. It wasn't a very big budget for folks that can't afford, but could also use some of the amenities or spaces like that. Do any of your other centers have something like that? Or that's not necessarily part of the model, maybe?
No, it is. So scholarship programs are clearly something that's important to all of our clients. All of our clients are nonprofit or governmental entities, right? And so there's usually a small amount of the budget that's set aside every year to vet through applicants that need the help and are committed to using the center, right? So I think it's important that if we're doing a scholarship, that they also demonstrate use and improvement through the programs that they're being supported with.
Do you expect that any of the space would remain public in any way, do you think?
I think there's areas in the front, the center, clear the front of house that are available. I talked earlier about, a lot of our centers are doing, fresh markets inside in the winter. So how do we make use of some of that larger lobby space, I think will be ideal to bringing some more of the community into it.
Going off of what Dave said, how will Medicaid be used?
Repeat the question, please.
Going off of what Dave said, for people who are at risk and low income, how will Medicaid be used here?
Yes, very good question. Thank you, Deanne.
Yes, thank you.
So every state has different Medicaid programs. In New York, there's a fantastic program the state of New York funds at our Center for CVPH, Champlain Valley Physicians Hospital, for youth that are disabled. And they pay for the youth to come and take specific programs that the staff have been trained to administer for that youth population. So I think we don't run a center in Missouri today, but our staff will look at the different Medicaid options in Missouri, and hopefully we can find some programs that would meet some of the community health needs that you have right here in Rolla.
Yes, I think we're hoping to expand come August, so that's kind of what I was leading to with that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? David?
I just have one quick one for kind of the group here, maybe not for this. Is that now a good time to ask that, or we?
As long as it's not an open session
certainly
thing,
not.
yes.
So you mentioned the idea, the mayor had mentioned the idea of bringing this out for the community to assess. I think we've learned a lot as council with your presentation as well as some of the previous presentations. For us, we all know that the center has been something of a contentious thing in our community, just because of the way, partly because of some of the funds from the original building of it that have needed to kind of subsidize it as it goes along. Nothing from the general fund. But, so my question is just like, when do we have set up that the public will have a chance to weigh in, like public hearing wise?
Next week, or in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, which is August 3rd, the plan is to, whoever is the community thinks about this and watches the streaming and whatnot, they have 2 weeks to get back to you as individuals. John and I, as far as city administration, they're welcome to speak next week, in 2 weeks, I'm sorry. Also at that meeting, in a closed session, we will take a conversation with you on the specific contract. So what you'll see tonight is sort of a draft, semi-finished. In closed session, we would, and next week, seek your approval to have a first reading, which you would have after the public has responded to us. And then on the second council meeting in August, hopefully the second reading and the execution of the agreement. So that's the timeline.
Okay. And so we'll do, August 3rd, we have a public hearing kind of earlier in the agenda for...
Public opportunity. I don't know if it'd be a public hearing, you know, in the literal sense, but yes, we're going to make in the early part of the agenda an opportunity, well, it could even be the back of the agenda, but suffice it to say, it'll be an opportunity for the council to hear from the public before we ask you to dive in and approve and have the first reading.
Sure. Is there a reason that having a public hearing or not would make a difference? I mean, we do that on kind of contentious issues, I guess, so.
To me, it's one and the same. It doesn't matter. We can state it for the official record, or we can just say whoever wants to come up and speak, speak. I mean, I don't have a strong feeling either way.
I mean, I know that public hearings happen at the beginning of the meeting, so sometimes that makes a difference for people that want to express their...
I don't know where it will be on the agenda. Suffice it to say that the public will be allowed to comment
Okay.
before we ask you to make a decision.
I actually think that we don't have many options to go with, and I do think Power Wellness has really demonstrated a great job and track record. So I'm not trying to put up any walls or barriers, but I just know that our public would probably see this kind of change. We're making a pretty big change to something that there's been a lot of ideas on all sides before. I think something like a public hearing, calling it a public hearing and having it at the beginning of the meeting would make more sense.
You know, Dave, I wish there were a lot of ideas,
Great.
but over 18 years, we've heard nothing.
Okay.
That's a cold, hard reality.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I may be able to expand. Public hearing means that there's record. Public hearing means that there is a record that is being kept. So I don't know that you have to keep a record, but I think you guys are talking about the same thing. Public hearing is discussed because of having to keep record for planning and zoning issues that is required. So,
The bottom line is, we do want to hear from the public, yes. This is an important decision. Look, it's a big facility, right? And it needs a resolution, and I, for one, I'm sick and tired of people bitching and moaning about what was or wasn't promised 18 years ago. Folks, it's time to move on. This is an opportunity to not only fix something once and for all, but actually to enhance it. So, I very much welcome the public input in 2 weeks.
So Mayor,
Yes.
are we going to maybe put the presentation online on the city's website so that the public has an opportunity to look at that?
Yes, as of tonight, this is public info. Oh, well, no, I take that back. This is stopped confidential and proprietary.
Let me go through it, and we could probably redact anything that we think is...
Okay.
Okay. I just think that would be helpful if the public has an opportunity to look through that while they're thinking about it.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure the focus is going to do a much more in-depth report after tonight as well. So, yeah, we'll publish something, but in respect to the owners of this document, which again, notice on the front page, it's a protected document, so we would ask that those of you that do have this tonight, don't be distributing it. There's legal ramifications to that, right?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think most of the document will be able to be released in its entirety,
Yeah.
so...
What else from council? If not, thank you.
Thank you all, appreciate it, have a good evening.
Thank you.
I'm going to excuse myself for 1 minute. I'm going to get there. Oh, I can't get this thing. Do you want to, no, did you say that Ken will just follow with me? Okay, moving on, we have no old business for tonight. Under new business, we have 2 items. The first is an ordinance amending section 30-16 of the code pertaining to plead and pay. This is a follow-up to a discussion from 2 weeks ago that I think got a little bit muddled. I think people construe this to be as a vehicle to change our marijuana laws. That's not the case. This is a technical issue that came about as a result of a Supreme Court guidance. So we would like to, in a clear, concise way, present that, along with a couple of options and a recommendation for you to act upon tonight. So, John?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, at the last council meeting, City Municipal Judge James Crum and Municipal Prosecutor Brett Neckerman and Lance was able to talk to us about the issue of, it's not called plead and pay in our ordinance, but it's the effective plead and pay, which basically means that you're acknowledging your guilt, you're signing on, and you're paying your fine associated with the typical traffic violations bureau that all of Missouri cities operate under. In fact, in your council packets, I put the 4-page listing of the uniform fine schedule that is established by the state of Missouri by a committee that they put together, and it covers everything from parking, animal control, driving offenses, and you have the ability to simply acknowledge guilt and to pay that fine. You can also always appeal that and schedule time before the court, but that's not what this particular provision was. So if you look at the page 4A2, the draft of the ordinance that we have before you, we are proposing, and this again was the issue raised by Judge Crump at the last council meeting, striking the language in section 30-16-D4, subsection 2. I'll just read the whole section. Persons who are found to unlawfully possess 10 or less grams of marijuana and have no prior history of drug offenses shall, in lieu of an arrest, be issued a citation and shall not be required to appear in court if paying the fine and shall not be fined more than $100. That's been on the books for decades. We actually didn't go back and track when that ordinance was put in effect, but it's been around for a long time. But as a result of a lot of the attention that's going on through the municipal courts, really ever since Ferguson, the legislature's been doing more and more sort of fine-tuning this uniformity the way municipal court operates. And specifically, the OSCA, the Office of State Court Administrators, establishes this program of these uniform fines, and if it's not on that list, then you really can't have this plead and pay. So that second section that says, and shall not be required to appear in court, isn't an accurate statement of how minor marijuana possession charges would be handled. You would be required to work out some agreement with the prosecutor and with the judge on that particular issue. So to be consistent with OSCA, we're suggesting that we strike that language. We know that this happened somewhere between 28 and 40 cases over the last 2 years. Simply means that rather than signing a guilty plea and paying the $100 fine, they have a court appearance, and the judge, based on input from the prosecutor, has the ability to propose what that resolution will ultimately be. So I don't know if Lance, you want to give
John or
some...
Lance, can you just follow that through so there's no misunderstandings? The person will not plead and pay, but they'll still have to go to court to go through the paperwork process. Is that not correct?
Yes. Now, again, it doesn't change the fine amount for a first-time offense. They still would not be able to be fined more than $100 as long as it's 10 grams or less. But simply going to the clerk's office and paying the fine without doing anything else, you won't be able to do that like you would with a traffic ticket. So there's no mechanism to allow for that for possession of marijuana under state law.
So the two options we have, correct me if I'm wrong, either of you gentlemen, is to sort of nullify our own and go with the state, which is more punitive than the municipal one, or two, strike those 7 words, like 7 words from the existing ordinance. Those are the two options.
Those are the two options to amend this ordinance to comply with what the judge had raised as a result of OSCA's assessment over the last month or so.
John?
Forgive me for not being here at the last meeting, but I did watch it on YouTube, and I'm curious, if we do not amend this, then we are not allowed to use plead and pay for any of our, is that correct, for anything?
Well,
So it puts all that at risk, is that correct?
we've had subsequent contact with an attorney at OSCA. that has called that into question. That was an interpretation. We disagreed with that interpretation, but we were told that that was the interpretation. After that meeting, we were later contacted by the chief legal counsel for OSCA and said that that will not do away with your ability to have a fine bureau. However, they still said there is no plead and pay for marijuana at this time,
Okay.
and that needs to be removed.
Okay.
It just doesn't do away with the fine bureau.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
That's pretty important change that we didn't hear about until that question got asked. I mean, was that something that was everybody was planning to share with us?
Yeah.
That was a discuss.
Last
We
week,
just weren't going to talk about that before we voted on it? I'm glad Tom
are you
asked the question.
insinuating something?
Well, I didn't hear anything about it. We're talking about.
We're talking about it now.
Okay, that
Last
was
week was a
coming up. We're getting ready to-
discussion,
Thank you.
a discussion that got carried away because half the town thinks we're going to decriminalize marijuana, which has nothing to do with this. It was a discussion to get more information, to bring it to your attention, which leads us to tonight, which is a first reading of an ordinance to correct the situation.
I'm just surprised, yeah.
And to clarify, that phone contact took place Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. So this is the first time that I've had an opportunity to address the entire council.
Sure, I was just surprised we started asking questions without knowing that piece, which I thought was a pretty big change in terms of, we got this presented.
There's no big change.
As if
No.
we were gonna have to either do this, or we're gonna lose our ability to do any of those pleading pays. I'm hearing something different now, so let's clarify that, because that's really, really important.
Any other questions? David?
Yep, we got a couple. So I just want to clarify, there was a mention of that all you have to do is come to court and pay $100. Well, that's also not everything. With your first offense, under 10 grams, you would potentially have to come to court and pay $100. For your subsequent offense, or if you happen to have between 10 and 35 grams of cannabis, you'd be looking at a $500 fine and potentially 90 days in jail. When you would normally plead and pay, you aren't normally looking at that. And I think the 90 days in jail is a big change if you're sitting and waiting to get into court. And you have to worry about getting babysitters for your kids, and you got to worry about getting time off your job. You probably don't have the money to waste all this time and effort and energy over something like cannabis. So that's something I wanted to add that's very important. I have a couple other things. There was discussion of why wouldn't you just get your card and be legal? And we've had a little bit of this discussion. But I kind of want to turn and ask our own HR staff a couple questions. Stephanie, are you available? Listening in right now, Stephanie, are you there? Okay, so I'm going to address the question while maybe she's unmuting. My question is actually about city employees, because we have city employees here, and I'm not really sure what situation they're under. Because, for example, if there was a city employee that worked in Rolla that did not need a CDL, that did not have a job, that's going to get them, need to ensure that they're not driving, et cetera, are they allowed to get a medical marijuana card? Because if they aren't, we're right onto the problem again. Our own city doesn't allow people to get cards, and therefore they have to be illegal if they've got lupus or some other thing that they need to do this, and the next thing they get picked up and they're sent to court, et cetera, et cetera. So let's really vet this and not just pretend like, get your card, it's fine, why are people? There's some other people in this town that might have trouble. United States Forest Service, United States Geological Service. Those folks do also sometimes want to participate in the program, but they're worried about what the federal government might do in terms of testing at their workplace, or if they found out they had a card. So let's not just paint this like, hey, you can get on the right side of the system. It's not that easy. So
John, would you answer that question? Because there are nuances associated with people that drive fire trucks and CDLs and things like that. Will you answer that question?
Yeah, the most direct way of answering it, our personnel policy says that we're a drug-free workplace. So under our current rules, anybody that tests positive for marijuana, which is still federally considered a Schedule I drug, would be a violation of our personnel manual. We are looking at that. We're actually having those conversations with the fire union. That is a requirement of all state and federal grants, that we be a drug-free workplace. The federal government doesn't recognize Schedule I drugs, which includes marijuana at this point. So until there's some changes that are still
until
done.
there's some changes, if you're a medical marijuana patient and you can't get your card, you could get picked up and face 90 days in jail in Rolla. That's what's going on, everybody. That's what's going on, if you're okay with that. I'm not. I'm not okay with that. And so I think we need to look at this deeper, and I think we need to consider some potential other, yes, we're talking about plead and pay. I'm not trying to get us off that. But you're asking us with plead and pay to make people who can't get their cards, potentially people who work at Rolla City, to potentially spend 90 days in jail if they're caught medically using this, which they can't get a medical card for. Does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. Sorry, it doesn't make any sense. So
David,
I do think we need to consider looking at a change to our law. Yes, we need to change the plead and pay to get on the right side of that, fine. But if we're going to change the plead and pay and not look at the other stuff, we're totally out of line with actually understanding this issue. So
David,
I'm not okay. I want to look deeper into this issue, and I want to
Mr. Schott, that's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
If this isn't related to plead and pay, and I'm
No, it's not.
No, what you're talking about does not relate to
Okay,
plead and pay.
yell a little louder, and that'll stop me. Thank you for yelling.
I'm trying
Yeah,
to,
okay.
Hold on.
you're the one yelling. I'm trying to make myself heard.
You know what this is? The hammer, gavel. Look, your points are valid.
Okay.
We're going to circle back and have that conversation.
Great.
That conversation is not on the agenda. What is on later on the agenda is coming back because last week, 2 weeks ago, the conversation was a mess. And the emails that I got made it even worse to try
I
and
didn't get
understand.
any of those emails, by the way. I didn't
Oh,
get any negative
you
emails.
probably
Maybe it was
originated
just you.
half of them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but let me finish.
I got some you originated recently, too. Thank you.
That's fine, I don't get that. So, my point is, we're going to come back to that, and what we were asked to bring back is an understanding simply between what the state does and what we do. And we're going to bring that later in the agenda. At that point, if council wants to have this conversation on changing our local laws to the extent that we can, have it. We'll put it on the agenda. This issue is plea and pay. We cannot do plea and pay, so before people start clapping over there, we can't do it. So what we're saying is, we can't do it, we take it out.
And I addressed that, but the effects of what that does matter, and I appreciate that we're going to discuss it more. Thank you.
But we have no choice. We have to take it out.
Right, but I also think we need, because of what's going to happen, I think we need to discuss the rest farther. That was my point.
And we can. If after our presentation in the last section, if the majority of this council says we want it on the agenda, we want to talk about it, then fine. We'll put it on the agenda and we'll have a discussion at the next meeting.
I'm also worried sometimes that our legal advice isn't coming to us that we need to know about what just happened. That concerns me too. That concerns me too.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Schott, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer
I'm just
them.
surprised that you knew new information you didn't tell us.
I just told you.
You asked a question to tell you. You didn't bring that up as like, hey, I want to reframe what we're talking about right now. I would think you'd want to give us that information before we start asking any questions. That seems crazy to me. But that's just me.
Any
I
other
don't know if
questions?
anybody else out there in public thinks the same thing, but like, we're going to start asking questions. We don't have all the information. Isn't that the job of our lawyer to get us that before we start asking the questions? It just seems crazy. It seems crazy to me.
I'm municipal for him.
Any other questions, please?
Well, just going off of what Dave said, with jail time, we also have to be thinking about the fact that this is a pandemic. We can't be sending people to jail for a plant. We can't be sending people to jail where they could catch this disease and die just because they're trying to access medication. That's not okay. And going off of the last meeting we had, Judge Crump is quoted as saying, "I don't like the rule, but I have to follow it as judge. I don't even want to be here." If our city leadership doesn't even want to enforce these things, if they don't want to do these things and they're saying, "I just have to do it because I have to," that's not a good enough reason. We need actual justice, and that's not justice.
Just to clarify, it is medicine. I understand that it's medicine. I think everybody here understands that it's medicine. This does not have any impact on medical marijuana. This-
All marijuana is medical. Can we just clear that up?
That's the impact. That's the impact.
Not without a prescription under state law.
But you can't get one in the city of Rolla, or if you're a federal employee.
And it's still going to be that way regardless. Whether you change it or not, it's still a state law, and that's going to require the same level of testing, and it's still going to require the same issues when it comes to getting the funding from federal government. It has to be a drug-free workplace. I'm not calling it a drug. The federal government has. That's my point.
Change the law.
That's right.
Then I hope every single person sitting here right now is working towards that in their personal life and voting for that in their personal life. If you will sit up here and say these things, I hope that you're actively working towards that in your personal life.
Any other council questions? Right?
Can I just circle back for a second? Are you willing, Lance, to elaborate on that phone call? Because for me, that was one of the really
Absolutely.
distinctive issues was they're forcing our hand, but are they or are they not?
So,
Who's they?
that's a good point.
The-
There's two theys here.
Yeah, the state Supreme Court that ruled that we had to,
The office, it's not the Supreme Court, it's the Office of the Supreme Court Administrator,
Right.
which means that they run the court system, but they were not truly elected, and we're not talking about just the judges, okay?
okay,
The rules are promulgated by the Supreme Court, but what had happened was Judge Crump had a conversation with Oscar about the plead and pay, the uniform fine schedule. He asked a question, essentially about whether marijuana was allowed to be put on that list. It was not, which means that you're not supposed to be able to do plead and pay at all. The,
Wait a minute, let's finish the question, finish the answer.
there was a clerk for Oscar who then went beyond his question and told him specifically that he was not allowed to have a fine bureau at all if there was anything that was not on the uniform list. If there was something additional or not something, an ordinance that didn't exist, then you couldn't use a fine bureau at all, which was not an expected response because that wasn't even a question that was asked. When we clarified it, we referred back, and everybody, there were about 5 people that were still on the email chain, including the entire committee that was involved in establishing the uniform schedule. She was the only one that responded, and she said that she had talked to everybody, and everybody agreed that that was their response. On Friday, we got a phone call, actually, on Friday we got an email that then led to a phone conversation with Judge Crump, myself, the senior counsel for OSCA, and Brad Neckerman, the municipal prosecutor. And she said that there was a miscommunication, that the clerk had said something inarticulate, and that was not in fact the case, that plead and pay for marijuana is absolutely not on the list, so you should proceed with trying to get that amendment, but that it does not affect your ability to have the fine bureau because it's not associated with the fine bureau, which was completely opposite of what they told us. How do I feel?
We don't want to take questions.
I-
Any other council questions?
So I guess I'm still confused.
So we don't have to do
We
that.
can't,
If we-
no, we
if
can't
we-
do plead and pay. That's the bottom line.
If we do not strike this tonight, what in essence does that mean for someone who gets picked up for marijuana possession in our city?
I don't, and I didn't anticipate that tonight we would have a first and final reading.
We're not.
Because there was new information. I expected that we would have a first reading so that we would have something to act on. Bottom line, it won't have any impact because the judge cannot do the plead and pay language because it's not allowed under the law. So essentially, he has to read that as if it were already void. It's going to continue to run that way. It's to clarify that language. And again, the fine is, it only affects that one portion in subparagraph 4.
So the judge will read it that he can't do plead and pay. That's what you're saying. With no change, he will read it that they will do plead and pay.
He has
He
no,
can't do it. Right.
he has no choice. He cannot do plead and pay.
Okay.
His response will be that he will send out a summons requiring everyone to appear.
So if we leave it in,
That's right.
it's not clean with the state law. If we take it out, then we have clarified it according to the state law.
And our own justice system can't comply with it.
The biggest concern I have with leaving it the way it is we have our ordinances out there for people to read. They're going to see that, and then when they show up for court, they're not going to be able to do that.
Right.
And I think it's worth repeating that we're still talking about the Section 4, which is specifically to 10 or less grams and no prior first-time offense. So there's lots of other marijuana citations that don't come into play under this provision at all. So,
I do think that, I just want to clarify one more time, that we were presented this, that we were going to lose ability to plead and pay on everything. We were going to need to hire another person upstairs, potentially two. A lot more work was going to be needed to be done, and that's how this was presented. Some new information came to light Friday. I got an email from our city attorney this weekend, so I did get some information from him about a totally different subject. I'm not sure why this information wasn't communicated to us, and it took some questioning by us to even get it out. I don't know if it's like trying to not let us know about it or what, but it certainly seems odd that we wouldn't get updated information on this before we have a first reading on it. That's just, I don't get it.
Let's remember one thing, that the judge is the one that brought it to our attention 2 weeks ago. It was the judge that had the discussion. It was not us. This is not City Hall that
Right.
2 weeks ago said, geez, we got a problem. This was
Right.
brought to our attention.
But then our legal counsel is helping us work through that and getting us the information we need to make decisions, that's all.
And they did. And they did. They had the powwow, they called Oscar on Friday.
We didn't find out about it.
Do you want a personal phone call on Saturday from
Email,
our attorney to say, Dear David, let me give you an
I would
update?
like maybe an email to all the council or something that's like, even before we start asking questions, like, hey, guys, there's a new change to this. You need to know about it. This is what it is. Otherwise, it looks like we're trying to not have that known so we can just, whatever, and not have any more conversations. Well, you know what? These are important conversations, and I think it's crazy that there's that kind of information wasn't shared with us. I'll leave it there.
Any other council questions? If not, can we have the first reading?
An ordinance amending section 30-16 .d.4 of the Code of the City of Rolla, Missouri relating to marijuana possession.
Next item of the agenda is an ordinance to consider the next step with our COVID ordinance, which expires tomorrow. John?
yeah, unfortunately, this is no easier topic than the one we just had. Of course, we've been doing this for about 4 months, taking various actions on COVID. Our ordinance, which is a full return to work, that's been the city's position for at least the last 60 days, 45 days, is return to work with some limitations, specifically that if you are in the food service or in personal care attendance, you wear a mask. If you're going to be using some public event that requires either public works or public safety, that you have to submit a health and safety plan. Everything else is recommended, strongly encouraging use of masks, social distancing, those kinds of things. As the mayor said, the ordinance expires tomorrow. It was adopted a month ago. Throwing it out here for city council discussion, we have drafted a revision of this, left it blank on page 2 of that draft ordinance. It's on page 4B3. Just leaving that to council if they want to extend that, and so to what date. The typical dates that we would do these are either a month from now, or in the case at least of the return of students that are coming August 24th, might make some sense to do something into that first meeting in September, but that's entirely up to city council to consider.
So we're coming with a recommendation. What do you want to do? Rachel?
I just wanted to clarify something too. When you say it was revised, you mean basically the revision was you took out the effective date, but all of the revisions that we made at the, 2 meetings ago now, where we kept the sort of exceptions for businesses and under, all of that's still in here.
Yeah. The only thing here is a blank.
Okay.
You either fill in the blank or you make changes to the ordinance.
And I did add one whereas statement, so we're just sort of tracking the legislation activities.
Ann?
I suggest indefinitely. Until COVID's gone. Yeah. We've all suffered through, this whole world has suffered through a devastating calamity. And many, many people died. There's been multitudes of people that have gone to service people to try to get, the vaccination fixed people well, and we are seeing rises here. There's rural America. Think of it as the virus is a forceful, dangerous, deadly disease, and it can ruin everything in a person's life. I considered it like a feral hog pack. You get a feral hog into an area that is a good habitat, just like the virus. We're good habitats for that virus, and that they will destroy. Okay, it will destroy us, and indefinitely might be a stretch, but I don't see there's any way we're going to be seeing our way out of this for months. And I think reasonable safeguards, wearing a mask, continuing what we're doing, encouraging companies or businesses to enforce as best they can, people wear a mask in the businesses. It's, I was up at Barnes today, nobody was in that place without a mask. My friend came back from Maine, they went to Arcadia, and she said she felt safer there than she does here. No one wears a mask, and or a lot of people don't. And we're a sick person waiting for a place to happen, as far as I'm concerned. I think we can probably absolutely, maybe not to the degree that businesses would like, but I think most businesses could continue to operate if people exercised caution, thought critically about where they were at, maybe make reservations for dinner if limited space was available. There's any number of things I think we could do. And I think moving forward for our economical development and betterment and for people not dying, it's an important thing to consider. But I'm flexible.
Matthew?
I think I'd be good with through the beginning of September, like that was suggested with S&T. I think, and I agree with Ann, this isn't going anywhere, but I certainly think if it's not going anywhere, we can always continue to review it with the most current science at the time and with the level of infection or the rate of infection in our area. So I don't think we necessarily indefinite, though it may happen that be the case. Certainly I'd be supportive of something that we at least look at again in the near future. So I don't remember the September date after S&T comes back, but I think
We've actually got Labor Day on that particular Monday, so the council meeting will move to Tuesday the 8th, and so Wednesday the 9th would be the appropriate day to get through that. We also, just the next sentence says that we've extended our emergency declaration until September 30th, so we'd have to amend that to go beyond that date anyway.
Rachel?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I second Matt's suggestion. I think that in sort of deference to the concerns that we've seen in the community, that this is sort of, there are some people who are less worried than others, but there are clear benefits to wearing the masks. Because we've managed to keep the infection rate low, and we want to avoid having to require masks for all citizens, which unfortunately some of the more infected areas in the state, like Joplin, have had to do. I think this is a pretty sensible ordinance as it stands, and I think revisiting it in September, at the first September meeting, will let us kind of, again, take the lay of the land, see what the situation is.
May I suggest that we invite Ashley from the director of the health department to give us updates at least maybe once a month on what's going on, testing and so on and so forth, so that we can keep track of it. It's worth our while to invest in taking care of our
Christine?
Yes, I would like to speak to this. I agree. I think we need to extend it to at least September. We are seeing increased numbers. But I would also like to address the issue of mask wearing. As it stands right now, it's just highly recommended. The CDC recommends that all people over 2 years old wear a cloth covering in public settings, when around people who don't live in your household, especially when other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. We also know that this disease can be spread by people who do not have symptoms. We need to slow the spread. We've gotten many emails, and I've talked to people who say that we've not had many cases. This is true, and we need to keep it that way, but they are increasing. We've also had many more emails, including from local business owners, pleading to institute some sort of mask requirement. Since mid-March, our city has not had students from S&T or kids in classes at all public schools. In August, this will change. Many stores here have mandated or will be mandating mask wearing by both employees and customers. I find this encouraging because it tells me that they value not only the customer's health, which was when they were requiring the employees to wear it, but now the employees themselves' health. Many people say that masks are not necessary, and I strongly disagree. If you look at other countries around the world, mandated masks or face coverings have prevented the numbers that we are seeing here in the United States. When we look here in the U.S., the cities and states that are being successful have mask ordinances. Just recommending mask use is not working. Too many people choose not to. Mask use is not about me wearing a mask to protect me from you. Studies show if you don't wear a mask, I'm the one at risk. My mask protects you, your mask protects me. Let's be a community and work together to keep this virus from impacting our community any more than it already has. Most people that I heard from are very pro-mask. Some of these that were anti-mask just want to get back to normal. I get it. I would love to go back to normal. But there is not going to be a normal for a very long time. As a council, we cannot please everyone. We have to base our decision on the overall good for the community. With this virus, it is better for our community to be proactive instead of reactive. If we wait for more cases and then say, oh man, we really need to have everybody wear a mask, that's being reactive. We need to be proactive and keep it from getting any worse than it already has been.
Thank you, Christine. Any other council persons?
Yeah.
Well, we either, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the statements that have been made, but I think with 5 active cases, maybe it's up to 6 in Phelps County, I think this community just does not feel the urgent need to cover up, to wear a mask. I think Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Menards, I think the list is growing, is going to require people to wear them coming in. But I think even if we mandate mask wearing, I just don't think this community is there, and we won't have much compliance. I mean, I hope we do, but I'm afraid we won't. Until we see our numbers starting to go up, I would hate to get to be too restrictive too early. I think we'll suffer mask fatigue, and by September, October, we may even see compliance fall off more. But that's my 2 cents.
Any other council comments? You have 3 choices. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, just, I also have September 8th jotted down. I'm in agreement with everybody. And then I also had a question, though. Mary's health department's only reporting online and publicly twice a week, and I wondered if you guys are getting updated numbers in real time, or are you waiting for those bi-weekly reports as well?
I think there's multiple answers to that. So we have a COVID team meeting once a week with the hospital, the director, emergency responders. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Smith, Chief Smith, you have those numbers and reports dailies, generally?
I ask for them.
Yeah, okay.
I ask for them pretty much every day.
Yeah. So some of us see them daily, some of us see them weekly.
We just
Chief, why don't you just, for the benefit, because I think somebody mentioned it over here, you gave me some numbers Friday, but what is the latest either as of Friday or today? Hospitalizations, number of cases, so on and so forth.
hospitalizations, there's 1 at Phelps Health still being treated. That's a continuation of last week. Active cases in Phelps County are 6, but that number expected to decline this week with some of those that have been considered active coming off of that schedule as they get to their 14 days and then they test negative. They've tested negative for a period of time, then they're removed from that. So right now the active list is 6.
Total number of cases are 50-something?
Yeah, total number of cases is
56? 56?
57, somewhere in that number. That number comes out Mondays and Thursdays, I believe. And the health department's been very active in communicating with me. And if there are big changes, we bring that attention to Mr. Butts or the mayor.
Chief, I know they're starting to do antibody tests. Are they including that in your reports as well?
Yes, sir. That's online as well, and it is very low. There's not been a lot of tests in Phelps County. Of that, and of those testing, it's a very, very minute number of those that are coming back as having the antibody. So that's a little discouraging.
Is it a question on the accuracy as well of that test?
So what is the 57 figure?
That's the total number of cases that Phelps County has experienced since March.
Okay, so we're saying we have, okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's 6 active cases.
That's correct, as of today.
Okay.
And a tent at Phelps Health, I believe, is 100 per day coming through there now and 50 COVID tests a day, something like that?
100 through the 10 every day, and those are all tests.
Right.
So they're testing the big portion of those. It's 100 on Fridays and Mondays. Mondays and Fridays is a big day, and then the rest of the week is 60 that they're testing through those days. So they are actively testing the area. St. James just had a test on Saturday, a week ago Saturday, and they tested 210 people. I don't know the number. I don't think there was any that came out of that, but I don't know that number. That number didn't rise after that. Those tests are back. Tests are taking longer. So to receive the test results do take some time because they're using multiple labs, not just using the state lab. So those sometimes take 7 to 10 days, which is somewhat unreasonable.
Chief, can you tell us anything about the Circle of Life or whatever that was in St. James that was having an outbreak? Is that?
Great Circle in St. James had an experience with multiple exposures, and I don't have the latest numbers on where they're at today, but it had been declining.
Yeah, I think one of the other interesting points of that we heard from the health department is that there did not seem to be a lot of community spread. So when the peak was really because of Great Circle, it was really confined to campus. Now there's lots of employees that find their way in the community, but there just had not been a lot of community spread as a result of that particular situation. So
That's a question we ask the health director often is, do we consider this change of cases, community spread, or do we consider it an isolated case that they got a handle on? And thankfully, Great Circle was one that they handled very well and got a grasp on very, very quickly.
and we have heard that the contact tracing is taking a huge responsibility of the health department. So one of the reasons they've gone out to the twice-a-week reporting is they are so much busier now in doing this contact tracing that their ability of just doing the regular reporting that they had been doing just overwhelmed their resources. So there is some talk about, does that get bumped up to the state, and the state take over more of the contact tracing and leave the local health departments to do more of the local coordination, but we're still working through that with the health department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So you got a couple of choices. You could do nothing and let the ordinance expire. You could extend it to a date of your choice as is, or you could modify it and extend it. Carolyn?
I recommend that we extend it as is, and then change it as we need to.
Yeah, no. I think that's what she's making. Are you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is to extend it to how long?
To September 9th, is that the?
Yeah, that'd be the day after the council meeting.
Okay. There's a
Second.
motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Matthew, second. Council questions or discussions?
What was the date on this?
Wednesday, September 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is going to have to be a three-step process. So we'll have to have a reading, we'll have to waive the rules, have a second reading, and then a vote.
And we're also going to date it, so it's as amended.
Yeah, so you might do that first.
So do the motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the effective date of the ordinance to September 9th, and there's a second. We had discussion. Read the amended motion? Or we have to vote for the amendment? Okay. Okay. All in favor of amending the motion as so stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? First reading of the amended motion. Ordinance.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 4566 in the city of Rolla, Missouri, allowing all businesses to operate within the city of Rolla with proper safeguards.
Okay, is there a motion to suspend the rules and have the final reading?
So moved. Or second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Second reading, please.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 4566 in the city of Rolla, Missouri, allowing all businesses to operate within the city of Rolla with proper safeguards.
All in, any motion on that? No. Yeah, no.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote. Roll call vote.
Shaw.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes. Yes.
Schneider. Yes.
Ruder,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Eberly,
Yes.
Florence,
Yes.
12 ayes.
Motion is approved. Moving on to claims or fiscal transaction, now we get to the controversial one. We'll talk about the water treatment plant. Steve?
Yes, sir. I put a diagram on your all's, in front of your desk showing the repair that we're requesting. We've had a clarifier go down at our Martin Springs Drive plant. It's a sole source for parts from Weisler and Associates out of Baldwin, Missouri for $33,282.14.
Yes, we do.
No. Not sure what happened to our Zoom, but we will try and get that back up. But in the meantime, so going to that item, it's as Steve said, actually it's the Southwest Wastewater Treatment Plant. For a clarifier, on the image, you can see the unit that is down. Parts are $33,282.14 is a sole source purchase. And then we did bid the installation of the labor, including the two firms that are doing the work at the existing two treatment plants. That's part of the big bond issue project that we're doing. And the low quote from that is Mid-State Pipeline for $23,400. It's a total project of about $56,682.
John,
Yes.
since this is not a budgeted item, where's the money coming from?
So fortunately, the sewer fund has a sufficient balance to cover that. Unfortunately, it's not eligible to be reimbursed by the state revolving loan fund on the treatment plants that we're doing, but the reserve budget for the sewer fund is sufficient to cover this.
What is the budget, the reserve budget?
It's going to be somewhere around $1.3 to $1.5 million.
Is it where we want it?
Yeah, our goal is to keep it at $1 million.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, John.
Looks like there are two clarifiers there. Are those the same age, John, or, I mean, can we, are we gonna get how are we doing on lifespan, I guess is my question, and can we expect number two to go down too?
I think this one surprised them that it went down, so I don't know if that was a failure on a mechanical piece that brought it down, but they don't appear that this is indicative of the other clarifier.
Any other, so we're going to have separate motions, right? One for parts,
Yeah.
one for, okay. Any other questions from council? If not, is there a motion to award the bid for parts to Ressler and Associates of Baldwin, Missouri?
Make a motion. Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Second one is a recommendation to award bid for the repair work of the clarifier to Mid-State Pipeline.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Moving on to Mayor and City Council comments. The first is a request of mine to appoint Mr. Dale Martin to the Enhanced Enterprise Zone Board. That position, whose term has expired, was by Bill Marshall. Bill Marshall was the first, one of the first founders of the Rolla Regional Economic Development Commission, and Dale Martin is currently the executive director, so it's very sensible to have him on this particular board. So my request is to appoint Dale to fill the expired term of Bill Marshall.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next item, in last week's conversation, there was a lot of confusion, I think, between what the municipal ordinance is and what the state law is. So what I asked staff and Lance's office to sort all out, and can we get one clear and concise answer, what our current ordinance is, what we are allowed to do, and what the state requirements are. So, John or Lance, would you explain that?
I'll defer to Lance if I can.
Sure. So if you're looking at B1, there's a simple chart for possession of marijuana. As a state offense, and I think if you look at the state offenses, you'll see that all of the state ranges of punishment are far more stringent on offenders with, pardon?
Punitive.
Yes, punitive. For a first offense, under 10 grams, the maximum fine is $500. For any subsequent offense, it becomes a Class A misdemeanor, which is a $2,000 fine and/or up to 1 year in the county jail. For 10 to 35 grams, it's a $2,000 fine or up to 1 year in jail. Above 35 grams, it becomes a Class C felony. Actually, Class D felony. I'm still working off of the old criminal code sometimes in my head. Class D felony is up to 7 years in the Department of Corrections and/or a fine of up to $10,000. For the current ordinance for the city of Rolla, the maximum fine for a first offense under 10 grams is $100. For a second offense or subsequent offense, the max range of punishment is a $500 fine and/or up to 90 days in jail. If it's between 10 and 35 grams, it's a $500 fine and up to 90 days in jail. And under the current Rolla ordinance, above 35 grams is not an offense that can be taken under the current Rolla ordinance, because the current Rolla ordinance says less than 35 grams.
Can I ask some questions?
Should we finish the note on the bottom of that, Lance?
Oh, I'm sorry. Also note that to be considered a prior offense, state law requires a prior finding of guilt for any drug offense, while the current Rolla ordinance prescribes the lower punishment for those with no prior history of drug offenses. That language should probably also be cleaned up to mirror the state law, just so there's no questions.
John?
Questions, okay. First offense under 10 grams, in Rolla, max fine of $100.
Yes, sir.
Any jail time with that?
No, sir.
Okay, second, and we're talking 10 grams or under, right?
Correct.
How much is 10 grams in marijuana? Is that like a joint, cigarette, 2?
10 grams, a few more joints, number of joints.
So
About 30 grams makes an ounce.
It's 28 grams in an ounce.
Okay. Second offense in Rolla, max fine $500 and 90 days, or you can include that, and/or?
It's and/or, both. When I use the and sign, it's and/or. I should have said
Okay.
and/or.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So we wanted to come back and just clear that all up. it's council's choice now whether or not you want to have another discussion relative to the Rolla ordinance. We ask that we put it on the agenda, give us some guidelines as to what you want us to talk, what you want to talk about. That's going to be a better format than trying to do it here at the council comments. So what's council's pleasure?
I definitely think we need to have this on the agenda to discuss more the possibilities of what can be done with it. Get away from the problems we're having with it. And the problems people in our community are having with it being criminalized. So yes, I think the discussion should happen.
Okay. Is the majority of the council in concurrence with that? And then my follow-up question is, do you want an agenda item just says, let's talk about it, or you want to narrow it down a little bit, or what's your preference?
I think I would like to have some discussion about it. I'm not sure that I am educated enough in this to understand what it is the impacts would be either on our law enforcement folks or the folks in our community that are dealing with this. It's not part of my life, so I don't understand what the issues really are, and I hate to be voting on something that I don't understand. I suspect there are a lot of unintended consequences of whatever we do, and I would like to at least have an idea of what those might be before I put my vote on the line here.
And
Jody, I agree with you, and I think there's a lot of nuances, and I don't claim to know them all. So I think to do the subject justice, we have to put out there what the ordinance currently is. I think we should give people an opportunity to say, these are the problems with it. I think law enforcement or justice should weigh in on things that they deal with that we don't know about. And then I think somebody in the legal department has to say, this is what you can do.
Right.
I mean, it's nice to say we can want to do this, but it doesn't necessarily mean. And I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you what those are. So if you're looking for a suggestion, you want to put it on the agenda, then I think those are the points you're going to have to hit.
I agree, we need to know what we can do
That's right. That's great.
legally. You wouldn't say it.
Well, and I think the repercussions, like Jody said, are the important thing. If you eliminate anything, let's say, it seems like I remember 35 grams being thrown around out there somewhere. I can't remember where I heard it. You eliminate any Rolla ordinance on 35 grams or less, that just it's going to get kicked up to the county prosecutor.
Yeah, keep in mind that law enforcement could always go the state route.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if we have an ordinance, if for whatever reason they decide to go the state route, then the state law is going to
They can
govern.
go that now, or they can go that without any ordinance. If we have no ordinance, they can go that way, and they can go that way now. So that, we can't control it.
Yeah. So if that's the agenda item, then I think we just need to get organized at City Hall and come with a comprehensive, I don't want to say package or even a recommendation, but I think we need to get all the facts out there and then let the community speak.
Mr. Mayor, some time ago, I did a memorandum for what the options were. I think that would still be relevant. I don't know how many, I don't remember how long ago that was, to be honest.
That was April, May, or no.
September
No, it
last
was like
year,
back in
yeah.
November, I think, because I,
September 16th, legal opinion on decriminalization.
So it might be worth it
Start with that.
to send out to the new members as well.
Okay,
And
we will do that this week.
we'll have it
Or send it out to the entire council all over again.
And Mayor, I would like, when looking at the possession of marijuana, I'd like to have that understanding of how many cases were broken down, each one of the categories, and what were the fines and what was the jail time associated with those.
For city and county would be great if we could have, that way we know which ones are being sent up and that too.
I don't know how you would
Yeah,
get the
before-
state
Well,
information.
at least start with the city, I guess.
It may be possible to get it from the
Well,
circuit clerk's office, the prosecuting attorney's office might have it.
Person is, or maybe that.
They won't be able to break it down on individuals.
Yeah.
Maybe they can break down some of the data, I don't know.
I tell you, as the director of the Public Defender's Office here in town, my office would normally represent somebody at risk of going to jail on a state marijuana charge, and I don't believe my office has represented anybody in the past year.
So it's mostly staying in the city, is what you're saying?
Or the state's not seeking jail time.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
That would be on the lower level.
Okay, so back to Lister's request. We can give him that, we can't give him that, or what? Won't leave that hanging out there.
Ask the prosecutor, county prosecutor. They can get us that information.
You can certainly ask. I don't know that they'll have it available.
Sure.
We can certainly try. Sure.
Okay.
City prosecutor should be able to give us that information, right, for our
city, of course,
municipal offense.
Ooh, Brad?
With regard to, some of that information he gave us just anecdotally when he was here last time. I believe he said that there was no jail time that he had sought, except for one case where it was somebody had already served the time. So it was a credit for time served situation. I think that's what he said when he was here.
Yeah, he actually gave the numbers and said in 2018 there were 40 cases of possession and 28 cases in 2019. We didn't ask for, nor did he break down, was that under 10, was that between 10 and 35 or 35
Yeah.
above? So we can track that.
Yeah, because following up on Lister's comment, I think it's useful for us to really see what the disposition of all the cases were to get a sense of what's actually happening when people go into court like this.
What else? David?
You want to go, Marie? I got a few things.
Yeah, I just want to echo, I'd love to see it on the agenda, love to see it discussed. I want to have all the information I possibly can as we're working through this issue, no matter how it came to light, no matter how it came to the public's attention, that it was important to them. Here we are, and I want to hear from our constituents and from our citizens that this is affecting. And so my question is, we discuss what are the repercussions, what are the ripples of this, what are our unintended consequences, and we're discussing that. And I want to hear from the citizens who are listening or here in this room, from the people you're connected with, what do you think about the possibility if we tinker with our ordinance and that causes our law enforcement, our prosecutor to choose to refer to the state? How do you feel about that? You are potentially in more risk. You are potentially facing more punitive measures. I want someone to help me understand whether or not you guys are okay with that, or you guys, I mean, obviously we have some representatives in the room, but that's part of what I would like to help me make my decision. So anybody who's listening, anyone who would like to email or call, the input of our citizens is important on all of these issues, and I want to hear specifically about that. Is it a trade-off for you that you're willing to live with, a risk that you're willing to assume?
Very good point, thank you. David?
So I have three things I want to hit on. The first one I just wanted to re-mention. I'm not going to belabor it, but I do think we need a public hearing on what's going on with the center. I actually do think what's being provided for us and this Power Wellness might be our best option. I mean, they look like a great company and all that, but we have other issues that are, I think, less contentious that are put to public hearing, and I just don't understand why, with this contentious of an issue with the center, we wouldn't want to sell that to the public and really feel like they got, and whether or not we call it a public hearing or they get to speak at some time during, why do we even have something called the public hearing if we don't use it for these kinds of things where we want to hear from the public? That's it. I just think we should do that. The second thing, people who haven't been educated on the latest research involving cannabis are still living in the dark and using the old stigma that is not represented by the newest research. All cannabis is medical at a basic level. It relieves stress, PTSD, and anxiety. Who in our society doesn't have stress and anxiety? Many people currently use alcohol as a way to relieve stress, but there are many negative side effects to alcohol, including depression, lack of restraint, agitation, and addiction. Because education is the best way to overcome misplaced stigma, I wanted to share this docuseries that I have watched called The Sacred Plan. And it talks about a number of different things, including pain, anxiety, PTSD, Alzheimer's and opioids, epilepsy, autoimmune diseases, and more, treating cancer, where to find access, reversing aging, increasing memory, etc. It's really well produced. It's got doctors who are at the cutting edge of research. So we can talk about all the things we think marijuana is a gateway drug. We can talk about all the things that we think it's a problem for our community, but the latest research is telling us differently. And it's telling us that it actually could be the opposite. It could be an exit drug for opioids. It could be an exit drug for alcoholism. I'm just saying, I've watched all this, and I'm not saying you can't dive deeper and research who these doctors are and find out more. I think we always need to vet everything and every information we've got. But I wanted to let the community know that I'm going to try to find a forum to have this shown, number one. And number two, I have this available for anyone in our community that would like to learn more. If you learn about this and you find out more and you decide one way or the other, at least you have the information to make a decision. So I just wanted to offer that. And then I have one other comment. So I was curious about the idea of setting up somewhere in our upcoming budget, a budget within that budget, to be able to seek second opinion on legal opinions. Instead of local legal counsel that doesn't do this kind of work every day, getting the opinions from a firm with a wider view would be helpful. You see many more of these issues over and over with other cities every day. That may be a better value. So my question is, when does our contract end with our current legal counsel, and can we have a deeper discussion of this topic before we rubber stamp a future contract?
There are on a regular basis outside counsel that is sought on areas that either City Hall or our existing attorneys do not feel comfortable with. Over the years, it's Gilmore and Bell, and I can go down the list. So whether or not we seek outside counsel on a particular subject really has nothing to do whether we have a contract with a local firm or not.
Right, kind of two separate things, but one was, can we have a budget for second opinions so we can all seek that and have it's always good, I mean, in everything to have a second opinion on something, number one. And number two, when does our contract come up, and will we make sure we vet these ideas before we...
Can you give us some examples? I mean, when you say you want a second opinion on something, what is the something? Give us an example.
Well, I mean, honestly, some of the discussions we had tonight would be examples where there was some misclarification, and had we had a second opinion, we might have had a little bit more clearer discussion. And so that's one example, but...
Let's go back to that.
Okay.
That's a poor example.
It's a poor example?
Because somebody brought to council, you're talking about Judge Crump.
Yeah, Judge Crump is a lawyer. That was
I
his
understand.
opinion.
I'm just talking
Well,
about...
I'm saying, I mean, we had a second opinion. We had his opinion, and we had Mr. Thurman's.
Bad example, you're right, bad example. But there must be other ones, I've seen them, and my point is, I'm just curious about that, but I'm also curious about, depending on the contract, and if we're gonna be able, I think the last time we did it, it was like, motion to pass this tonight. And I just think that we should at least discuss it, because I have been to some of the MML places conferences where they do have law firms that do this on a daily basis, and guess what? That plead and pay, they saw it 5 times before it would have gotten to Rolla if they had been Rolla's lawyer. They would already have, explored it into other cities. So we might get a better value for the fact that they're checking on these things all the time. So
Are you asking for us to find day-to-day law firm to do all of our work, or it sounds like what you're saying is there are times, they're two separate things.
Two separate things, you're right.
At some point, our existing attorneys are making recommendations, but their recommendations also include, if they feel that they need outside opinion, they very, very quickly come to us and says, we think we need to check this.
But we wouldn't seek that on our own, is what you're saying? A second opinion?
It depends.
Depends, okay. We might.
We do it now.
Okay.
He picked up the phone and called Oscar. John picks up the phone and calls Gilbert.
But we don't do it through a different firm. We do it through the same firm.
Think of this as a corporation. A corporation typically has a set of lawyers that act as the coordinators, if you will. You rely on their judgment to advise you. Sometimes they're going to advise you with a specific opinion. Sometimes they're going to say, this is what I think, but we should get another outside counsel that specializes in this.
Sure.
I guess what I'm saying is we do that now. I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, I just wanted to check if there was a possibility to look at what your budget, have a special budget that if we needed to go out for this one, because it's like, this is kind
We
of...
don't hesitate. When it comes to matters like this, we don't hesitate. If it's outside of our area of expertise.
Okay. We spend money to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the big picture, it's a small amount of money.
So then the other question was just like, when is the, maybe you don't have that, but maybe you could dig it up, and I
Yeah.
just want to just check that we'd have a few weeks to a month to look over those things before we go ahead with making any choices.
It seems to me like we renewed that contract last year,
It
but
was
I can
pretty
check
recent.
that.
It was pretty quick and
It's
pretty recent, yeah.
Typically 3 years with 2 one-year options, but I'll find out that contract date and send it to you.
Send it out.
Thank you.
We do, just to clarify, we do have a line in the budget that's specifically for other legal, and a good example I could think of is when we hired Cunningham Vogel to help us do our right-of-way management ordinance. If you remember, that was a massive
Bigger thing,
undertaking.
gotcha.
Brought them in, they spoke to council, that kind of thing. So
We
there
do
are
it with
occasions-
union negotiations.
Right, okay. Appreciate it. And if anybody needs to get with me to see this after, let me know, I'll get you hooked up with it.
Any other council comments before I move
Yeah,
on?
I've got one.
John?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, you all might remember that I had sent out an email. I'd been approached by kind of a community committee that would like to put a hometown of Olympian Shante McMillan signs out on the city limit signs. And after a lot of discussion, I heard from them today. They presented their fee, the $100 fee. They presented their signed petitions and their application. So I'd like to send this down to John or Lou and have them look over it, and maybe we can get this thing going. Find out what we need to do and all that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of options. I think the one that the group was proposing was actually the signage and recognition on MoDOT right-of-way, and MoDOT has a
Yes.
process for
Yes.
just a recognition sign. We have a more cumbersome process for renaming parks and streets and that kind of thing, but that's not where this one was going. So
Right, right.
MoDOT ultimately doesn't require that the city council be on board, but they certainly don't want to do something that the city council then is going to take exception to. So we'll definitely, if you'll send that information on, we'll share that with city council. You can put that back on the agenda. We can contact MoDOT and get a specific action plan, go forward.
If anybody has any questions, I'm available, so.
And I think, John, the group's willing to raise the funds to pay for the
Yeah.
state signage to do that.
Yes, they've got a fundraising committee set up, and they're just kind of waiting for us to give them the go-ahead.
Thanks for tying it with John.
Sure.
Great effort.
Well, we were considering 63 north and south coming into Rolla, and then on 44 east and west coming into Rolla, so.
Any other council comments? Item C is audit committed appointments. I'm setting that aside. I'm not ready to make those appointments just yet. Citizen communication, we do have one that was scheduled, and that was Ms. Holly Esposito. Is Holly here? Yes, please. If you would, Holly, please state your name and address for the record. And as with all citizen communication, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, if at all possible.
Yes, sir, thank you. My name's Holly Esposito. I reside in Ward 2 on Farrar Street here in Rolla, which is over by the Derwan Park. And this is Cheryl, and this is Tristan.
I'm Destiny.
And Destiny, sorry. And these ladies are actually kind of helping me in my community, and I'm going to share something with you. Are you guys able to see that on your screen?
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Okay. This is my cousin Michael John. Remember the photo taken besides his tombstone? The photo taken was approximately 3 months before he was murdered, and that was over a $50 meth debt. I was 17 at the time, and we were raised as brother and sister. In 2001, my Uncle Jerry was murdered, and he was actually on a deck of cold case file cards for about 18, 19 years. And just now they arrested one of the many people that was involved in his murder. He walked out of a bar after paying for a round for everybody that night, and was shot in the back of his head with a shotgun and behind a dumpster. The next slide is of my first husband, Kenneth Flannery. He was murdered in our home with our 9-month-old son on my hip by a 16-year-old in the community that was coming down from a cocaine high. This is my cousin Jeremy and his brother Stephen in one of the pictures. This is where both of them actually reside, and that's a picture of Jeremy's daughter on her 21st birthday that's celebrating her birthday sober with her dad. This is my cousin Stephen, Jeremy's older brother, and that's a picture of him and his wife and his 2 daughters. And that's where we go to visit Stephen, and he also passed away from a heroin overdose. I don't live in a very nice neighborhood. I live where I live because that's where I can afford to be. I have a lot of health problems. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm getting my master's degree. I'm a mom with 2 moms. My health has to come so I can take care of my children, continue school, and I live where I live because that's where I'm allowed to be right now. This picture of this syringe was actually found by my then 11-year-old son. It was in an eyeglass case the neighbor had dropped out of their car. He grabbed it and ran it to her and said, "Hey, you forgot your glasses." She walked in her house. I said, "Give them to me. I'll just leave them on our doorstep." It was a syringe. This is a needle I found off the sidewalk while I walk one of my 2 dogs. I typically find these along with paraphernalia, spoons, bottom of soda cans while I walk my dogs. This was right off the sidewalk in front of one of the storage units. This next one is a stash of 2 needles. This was underneath a car tire in the parking lot. And this parking space is shared right next to a girl who has 2 children under the age of 2. This is our dumpster. And there's a syringe with a needle on it laying right out in front. And this is my normal every other weekend, every weekend night. And it's normally not because of marijuana. It's alcohol. This is a syringe I found within feet of a bus stop. Walking my dogs, and this is right after the bus that came and got the kids. There's a picture of the needle. What I didn't realize when I took that, there was actually 2. One was just out of view, and the officer's the one that was like, "Hey, there's 2 here." But as you can see, I'm standing where the needle's located, and at the end of that and the section way is where the bus stop comes for the kids. This was found June 5th, outside by 3 kids, ages 8 to 11. This is the bottom of a soda can that was found on my sidewalk 10 feet from my apartment door. This is where they've used to cook. The other side that you can't see is where they took the lighter and it was burned. And those are my 2 most beautiful, precious kids that I have. Ages now are 12 and 18. And it's hard for me as a mom to get them to school, teach them the things that they need to do, how to be a good person, good community member, when they can't go outside to play. We have Barrowan Park. They're not into baseball, okay? There's a skate park. We found all kinds of needles. It's just that you guys are focusing on 10 grams or less, or 35 grams and less. My community where we live, they don't have car insurance because vehicles are a luxury. How are you going to find $100 for your doctor's recommendation, the state fee, and then your medication, when you can't even afford car insurance because it's a luxury? But I can tell you this, the black market, the heroin, we had an overdose a month ago. And my neighbor downstairs had to go over and give him a mouth-to-mouth until the cop showed up to give him Narcan. And that is normal for my neighborhood. We can't afford fines. We can't even afford the doctor. I had to quit my job in order to afford health care so I wouldn't suffer, so I could still be around in 10 years. It was either work or slowly die. So I live where I live. It doesn't mean it's okay, though. And I think that your guys' focus really needs to come around. Not only is it medication, unfortunately it's not a federal right, but it's only holding us back. I mean, February comes and we get new cars in the parking lot. By the end of April, those are gone. They're repossessed. We've got to get to better as a community. I have lost so many people in my life to methamphetamine and heroin. Nobody dies from marijuana. Nobody. Packaged properly, you guys talk about a business. This is something you should be welcoming, not only as profitable, but to help your community. Because unfortunately, there's 44 apartments in my complex. That's 44 adults. 1 in 5 Americans suffer from mental illness. Just do the statistics. You're holding us back. And I want to thank you guys.
Holly, very sorry for the losses that you've had in your life. This was a very thoughtful and moving presentation. I'm sure it was difficult to come and to do this.
I've actually spoke about it several times. I'm an advocate for many things. So this is not the first time. It's just difficult living in the situation that I am right now, and seeing how it affects not only me and my kids, but the neighborhood kids and the parents that just literally try and do what they can do every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having the courage to come up and doing this.
And just so you know, too, there's those of us up here, too, that support anything that we can do to help with this problem. You know, we can't lay it on Chief Fagan and the police. It's not something they can solve on their own. It needs to be something that we as a community gather together and say, as one example, we're going to take our resources and focalize it on the stuff that's really causing us trouble, and maybe not waste our time on some of the others that's not.
Absolutely.
But there's lots of other things too, and I know there's a lot of us on here that want to be part of that, whether it's opioids, whether it's heroin, whether it's meth. We want to be part of the solution for that. So if you guys have ideas in the future, don't be afraid to come bring how we can be helpful in that.
I appreciate that. Yes.
Any other citizens that would like to speak to council?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Shirley Martin, and you probably remember me from the last council meeting. I am also now co-founder of Rolla Cannabis Action Network. I walked out of here 2 weeks ago feeling very defeated. Maybe people like myself just fell through the cracks, and always would. Maybe those constituents, we really didn't have a voice in this community until after the vote is taken, that is. That point infuriated me and caused me to lash out in ways that I normally would not condone. And for that, Ms. Bolin, I apologize. But I digress. A few hours after that meeting, I was inundated with private messages from Rolla cannabis users, and I realized that they do have a voice, but it's guarded. They have the same stories, the same struggles, and they're all afraid of you. They are afraid to speak to the very people who speak for them, and because of that, Rolla Cannabis Action Network was born out of sheer necessity. Rolla Can, as an organization, has already started uniting your community. Yesterday, Rolla Can hosted a community cleanup. 20 of our citizens from different walks of life gathered together in the heat of the day during a heat advisory to clean up Holly's neighborhood. A neighborhood like so many others that you don't see. You're afraid to walk through and ignore the suffering of the lives that are there every single day. As these warriors picked up syringe caps, drug spoons, and cleared out cigarette butts from children's playgrounds, they also shared stories of how cannabis had saved them or someone they love. Others spoke to the fact that they are in a position financially, socially, or otherwise where they are unable to obtain a medical marijuana card and must medicate otherwise. Your laws have hindered them and given them unneeded fear of prosecution and jail time. Because of the stigma surrounding marijuana and the criminalization of this plant, you cannot see your community. Because of the division, you have made rivals of your own constituents. But council members, we are here to tell you that rivals are merely people who live on opposite banks of the same river. And it is time for Rolla to be the bridge that unites us. We are broken, we are proud, We are survivors that are the backbone of this community. We are you. We are not the enemy, and we are the same. The undercurrent of pain and fear in this community is so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Our people will not be served justice until they're not afraid to speak to the people that represent them. I could stand here all evening and read you testimonies from your community that were not afraid to talk to us because they knew their voice and their stories would be validated. Our community has an opioid and methamphetamine problem. Our addicts are not bad people, they are sick people. Decriminalization of cannabis can ensure that people have a choice without the fear of going to jail. We get it. Cannabis can't be legalized completely until state or federal legislature has changed, but we can create a safe haven here in Rolla for those who are unable to obtain their medical marijuana cards and free up space, time, and resources for the real problems of Rolla. In the meantime, Rolla Can will embrace this community with open minds, open hearts, and open doors. Councilmember Bowen, at the last meeting you shared with us your fears and opinions on marijuana. Just like fear, I believe that hope can change the heart and the mind. On that note, I would like to extend an invitation to you and the rest of the council members from Rolla Can and its 200+ members. We would love for you to pick a neighborhood in your ward and stand in unity with your constituents as we clean up your community. Walk with us. Talk with us. See us. Hear us. Unite us. Come, see for yourself that cannabis users do not belong in jail with hardened criminals, that we aren't burnouts and druggies, but productive members of this community. Rolla can set the precedent of hope and unity right here in this room. But it is the people out there that matters. Words are just words unless action is put behind them. We've already started a ripple. This is your chance to stand on the right side of history and be a part of the wave we have created. This is when you get to decide, are you going to be part of the problem or are you going to be part of the solution? It gives me great unease to hear about the center while the rest of your community is dying. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Right.
First of all,
If you can keep it closer to 3 minutes.
Yes. My name's Tristan Dunlap, and I'm out in the county. So, first I'd like to thank you all for having us this evening to speak our truth to you. I believe each one of you will do the right thing and open your ears and hearts and minds to the voices speaking to you today. I also want to address an internet video that was released and may have caused offense, and I am apologizing for the act, but not for the reason. This woman right here is like a sister to me, and she is one of my best friends. And the way she was treated at the last council meeting while I had to sit at home and watch an online video disgusted me. I wanted nothing more than to tell everybody exactly how disgusted I felt, but I couldn't. So I apologize, and I hope you may extend to me the same forgiveness as I have forgiven those actions since then, and I apologize. All right, as I said, I'm Tristan Dunlap. I'm a massage therapist. I'm a small business owner down in downtown Rolla. I'm the co-founder of Rolla Cannabis Action Network and a productive member of this community. And today I come before you not only speaking for myself, but for many others out there that have similar stories and feel that they don't have a voice. We are speaking to Rolla, we are asking that Rolla pass decriminalization and become an amnesty city, free from criminalization against a plant that helps heal so many. You may think that this is ludicrous with Missouri legalizing medical marijuana, but there is so much more to this story, and I'd like to paint a little bit of a picture from my own personal experience. Growing up, I was not I was a golden child. Despite my appearances now, I was the kid that didn't get in trouble. I don't have a record. I was on the Honor Society. I was an athlete. I was a band member. I was a community member. I was a straight A student. I actually graduated magna cum laude from Rolla, and I continued on with academic scholarship to pursue my dream at that time of becoming a doctor. I wanted to be an MD. And I wasn't rebellious. I had a fantastic home life. I was absolutely privileged in that respect because I know a lot of people aren't. My parents were incredibly supportive. But on the outside it was all great, but on the inside there was a bunch of things people did not see. Behind that shiny facade, at the age of 13, I was molested by my boyfriend's 40-year-old father multiple times and was keeping it a secret. That I had suffered being beaten until I couldn't stand for absolutely no reason. What they didn't see was at the age of 14, I had been diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. Later, I found out that CPTSD, which is sexual abuse based PTSD, domestic violence based PTSD, your domestic survivors. We have it. It's a very real thing. No one wanted to talk about the fact that at 16 I had already attempted to commit suicide at least once because of all the abuse that I was taking from my peers. This all led into this part of the story where I suffered a sports injury at 16 that led to 2 different surgeries on my knee that debilitated me. And I was unable to walk for a long amount of time. The doctors prescribed me Vicodin. This was down in Waynesville. They kept prescribing me Vicodin. And at 16, I became a Vicodin addict. For 4 years, I was taking pills, 1 month's worth of pills in 2 weeks' time. And the doctors didn't question it. They kept giving it to me, and it was so easy. It was so easy. So as I was saying, these things led up to this problem for me. After that, at 20 years old, I decided that I wasn't going to take pills anymore and that I was going to pitch them, which was great and all. But then alcohol came in place of it and became my crutch. 2 more incredibly abusive relationships, a few hospital visits for mixing pills and alcohol, and one very, very concerned friend later, I finally found my way to cannabis. One of my dearest friends saw that I had a problem that I would end up self-destructing, and she was the only one who could see all this, even if it was absolutely illegal for her to do so, for her to give me marijuana. But she did anyway. On the outside, I was still playing the part of the golden child. I was pre-med bio, I was going along my way, I was doing well. And people passed off the fact that I still came into class drunk and with bags under my eyes as overworked and tired because I was a pre-med student. Whenever she handed me that weird-looking bowl of marijuana and said, "Dude, you don't need the alcohol anymore. Take this," I was scared. There had been so much information shoved down my throat as a child that I was afraid because it was classified under the same dangerous level of meth and heroin. And so I went ahead and I said, okay, fine, I'm going to try this, and my entire life changed. I was able to actually keep off of the narcotics, which were incredibly hard. Trust me, they don't discriminate what pain they take care of. They took care of my emotional, my mental, my physical pain. They numbed everything, and I was a zombie. But it took it away. I didn't have to think about it. And I don't want to see the community of Rolla to suffer that same fate, because I'm going to tell you, it sucks. Withdrawal sucks. But if I had had cannabis at that time, I probably would have been able to suffer through it a lot easier. And I can tell you that today. I'm currently I was prescribed Xanax ER, which is extended release. I am currently coming off of that because I don't feel that it is safe for me, and I'm using medical cannabis as a way to get over my withdrawal symptoms that I'm having, well, actually right here because I haven't medicated. So if that makes people criminals in this community by taking care of each other, then you're going to have to put all of us in jail. Because there are so many people out there that use it without having a medical marijuana card because they can't afford it. I'm fortunate enough, my parents paid for mine. But I don't have, a lot of people don't have that sort supporting, loving family, especially if they've been estranged because of said marijuana use or other reasons.
Yeah.
So I would like to see from my city council the possibility of decriminalization, or at least declaring amnesty city, because I know we can do it. When I lived in Columbia, we did it. It's completely decriminalized in Columbia, in Kansas City, and in St. Louis City. And I lived in both St. Louis and in Columbia. So I'd like to see this come to the docket next time and actually talk about decriminalization, because it's absolutely ludicrous. Thanks, guys, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Where'd my phone go?
Even she said.
Hi, I'm Destiny Thompson. Do you need my name and address?
Yes, please, for the record.
Destiny Thompson, THOMPSON. Did you need my address? 2136 10 Brink Drive, Rolla, Missouri. So, I would just like to preface this with, I am not a medical marijuana patient and I do not use. I just figured that you guys could use or benefit from a point of view that doesn't involve that. Give me a second, I'm having a panic attack. I'm here today to give my testimony regarding someone you all know very well. You either know her, or maybe she's your best friend. Or perhaps she's the only reason why some of you are sitting here before me and behind me today. Her name is Mary Jane. The people I love have been saved by her. They've been pulled from their abusive relationships and with others and have been embraced by her. She is healing, she is a sound mind, she is comfort within yourself, and she is criminalized by those who don't understand her. We're going to trail off for a couple of minutes so I can speak on behalf of a member of my family that wasn't able to be here today. It's my mother, and her name is Angela Michelle Tridico. She began her addiction to opioids very early in her life. From the age of 13 to 39, Oxycontin, Percocet, and Vicodin ran her life. It shaped who she was. She was able to obtain all of these opioids from her doctors, through doctors that her friends had, from friends that are friends that got them from their doctors, and so on. She didn't have to buy them. She did not have to search for them. And having them wasn't illegal. It was completely legal for her to have them. And you know what still is illegal? A plant. Something that grows out of the ground. But that isn't the point here. The point is that my mother was given every opportunity to ruin her life with the substances she was given by medical professionals. The same medical professionals that won't recommend medical cannabis to patients because they don't believe in it. Sure, she is an adult and can make her own decisions, but does that sit well with you? Does it sit well with you that the doctors get monetary kickbacks whenever they prescribe opioids to their patients? In 2014 and 2015, opioid manufacturers paid hundreds of doctors kickbacks in the 6 figures, while thousands more were given over $25,000. That's from a study done in 2018 from the Harvard School of Public Health. I wonder how big that number is now. I don't want to paint my mother as a horrible person because addiction doesn't make you horrible. She would give you the shirt off her back if she thought it would help you. She would give you the breath out of her lungs if it meant that you could live another day. Being addicted doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're sick. It means that you're dying. And in 2008, she died. She overdosed herself with the pill she legally possessed. She died in the same hospital that gave her her demise. I remember being 10 years old, looking down at my mother in her casket, wondering what I could have done to keep her there. What I could have done to help heal her. No child should ever have to ask themselves those questions. Ever. And for that, I am asking you, please, please stop making something that can help addicts unavailable. Cannabis didn't save my mother, but it may save someone else's. I'm sorry. I lost my place. Sorry, I can't even read. The last conversation I had with her, I asked her what I'm supposed to do when she's gone, and I can't help her anymore. She told me to imagine all the times that she had hugged me before. So tonight, as I'm speaking to you, I'm wondering if she would still be here today had the nation had their priorities straight then. Maybe I wouldn't be hugging a memory. I heard someone last meeting talk about how someone they loved started smoking weed and then eventually started doing drugs. It was implied that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's not. It's not even a drug. Then how does one move from weed to other things, you may ask? Because weed is dealt in the same ring that meth, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and many others are dealt. Why? Because it's illegal for some stupid reason. Smoking weed doesn't make you want to do other drugs. Being around other drugs makes you want to do other drugs. So let's decriminalize it so they aren't sold in the same places. Weed doesn't belong with heroin and meth and all of those horrible, horrible things. Oh my goodness. Out of all the places I've been and all the people that I know, and I know a lot of people, not one of them has been affected negatively by my girl Mary Jane. Not one. So I'm asking you to stop acting like weed is the problem. Thank you. And if it was okay, my sister had prepared something that she wasn't able to come and share. It's about 3 minutes long. Is that okay if I play that?
Yes, if you can, because there's a big agenda later tonight, but 3 minutes will be fine.
Absolutely. 3 minutes, 38 seconds.
Practice it.
Young little girl with big green eyes riding her bike down the road for the first time. Big ol' heart and short brown hair, her mama cut because it wasn't getting enough care. Daddy's in the picture more than Mama, though, because Mama was too busy with her drugs and dope. Every other weekend, he took his 2 baby girls to see her. She disguised her tweaks and tics just so that she could spend time with the girls. But little did Daddy know, Mama was dropping the girls off with random strangers so that she could get high. She said, everything's gonna be all right. Gone for hours on end, even possibly a whole night, Grandma would pick them up. Mama wasn't in sight. Grandma, where's Mom? They asked. Mama's at home taking a nap. 2 little girls with big green eyes get in the car with Daddy. Their weekend with Mama was over. Every night the girls would cry because they missed her, and Daddy began to think he wasn't enough. But the truth was, Mama just wasn't spending enough time with the little girls. The school year went by, and Daddy decided the summer was hers. He drives down the gravel road and sees Mom standing on the porch. That smile on her face was so big. Daddy said his goodbyes and went on his way, but yet the summer was spent in dark rooms with people they didn't know, the scent of cigarettes and stale dope in the air. The girls were depressed and sad, so they called Dad. Mama's never here and we want to go home. This isn't fair. Daddy comes and picks them up, and the girls watch out the back window as they saw Mama dancing on the gravel like a monkey, trying to keep a smile on her face, but all she wanted to do was cry. As tears start to roll out of their big green eyes, they noticed Mama come to a still stance. Mama was crying and waving goodbye, no longer doing the monkey dance. Weeks went by and Mama was depressed. More and more drugs piled on to hide the stress. You could see the tracks in her skin, the scabs on her face, and here Mama was doing pills again. But she missed her girls more than anything else. She missed her girls. She called Daddy and he said, no, not until you're off the dope. But Mama was addicted. She was cuffed and bonded and conflicted. She told herself, I'm not enough. Never will I ever give this up. She cried and beat herself up, thinking she'd never see those little girls again. She fell to the ground, pill bottle in her hand, and decided that this was the end. A few hours later, Mom is in a hospital bed, sleeping but awake at the same time. They called it a coma. Daddy said, Mama's a little sick, but I'll keep you in knowing. I'm going to the hospital. You girls are not going. Daddy left the house with his guitar in his hand. The 2 little girls didn't know his plan. He walked into the room, her laying there so still. It was about 25 till. He sat next to her, then kissed her hand, and played the most beautiful song. He didn't need the help of a band. He looked at her face as a tear rolled down her cheek. The girls say they love you and they missed you last week. He got up and walked out and drove back home to the little girls in the same bed because they didn't want to sleep alone. Next day, a call to his phone with some upsetting news. Girls, wake up. Come upstairs. There's something we need to do. 2 little girls with big green eyes look their daddy in the face as he starts to cry. Bigger sis starts to sob, then lifts her head up and asks if Mom's gone. I love you so much. Daddy didn't want this to happen, but nothing Daddy said would bring Mama back. He knew that. It was her decisions that led to this, not his. 10 years later, all grown up, Daddy must have done something right. He must have had the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you can name and address for the record, and if you can keep it to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try. My name's Herman Guterslaw. I'm a local attorney and a board member for Missouri Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. And today I'm here speaking on behalf of the board to state the board's position towards marijuana laws and ordinances. I'll try to keep it brief. Unfortunately, it's a professional hazard to do just the opposite. So, Lance, if you want to put me on an egg timer or something. That would...
No, I'll put you on the egg timer because we really do have something.
I understand.
To do, so please.
It's a position of MACDL that you don't amend the ordinance, you don't decrease the penalties, you don't decrease the fines, you don't do any of that. Rather, you abolish it outright. And with that, but only with this, is that you also declare Rolla a sanctuary city. To do one without the other gets into the problem this council person mentioned with it shifting everything to state court. And Lance is thinking I just probably dropped a bomb in his lap. Now he's got to look up some ordinances on sanctuary cities, but I'm going to help you out. There's been some sanctuary city models throughout the nation with Second Amendment and guns and with the ICE and immigrants. The Second Amendment cities don't, or declarations of sanctuary don't offer as much because it's usually a sheriff saying he's not going to enforce the gun control of Virginia or whatever. So that doesn't produce an ordinance. That doesn't produce anything we look at. But the ICE ordinances and the immigrant sanctuary cities do, and some of the courts have upheld them and some have struck them down. So you have a battleground there to look at. And I realize that those are federal laws, those are different laws, those are different ordinances. They're different everything, but if the city of San Francisco can write an ordinance telling the entire federal government you can't come around here and arrest our citizens, I think that the city of Rolla can pass an ordinance saying the Rolla Police Department cannot enforce state law for marijuana under 35 grams. And I'd stay away from the felonies. There's a lot of other problems. But you would make it a sanctuary city for the exact same offense as to what you would be abolishing. So not higher, just the same thing. Abolish the marijuana ordinance outright and declare it a sanctuary city. Your officers are not allowed to enforce state law. They can't go over and file it in state court. And that was some of the problems you raised, is that it just shifts it over to state court. And that's the only way to do it. If you just abolish the ordinance, you're not doing anything. You're really not. You're not helping any of these people out here. You're not doing anything they want. You're just getting it out of your court into a different court. And I know that Matt Crowell is saying it's not being enforced that much right now, that he doesn't see any cases because no one's seeking jail time. That's just now. I mean, that can change with policies. It can change with people. The reality is, the state law that you're shifting into does allow 1 year of jail time after the first offense over 10 grams. Here's the state law that you all were talking about earlier. Here is a news release that says San Francisco sanctuary ordinance is lawful. One more time, if they can tell the entire federal government you can't arrest our citizens, then I think the city of Rolla can just downgrade enforcement of misdemeanor-like offenses. When you get, you know, people talk about getting arrested, they talk about going to court, going to jail, being prosecuted, and you have to keep in mind that when you have an ordinance that says marijuana is a violation, you can get arrested, you can get a ticket, you can go to court, you can be fined, and you can go to jail. It is not the officer's fault for making that arrest. It's not the prosecutor's fault for prosecuting it, and it's not Judge Crump's fault for imposing sentence when the ordinance is telling him that's exactly what he's supposed to do. It's city council's fault. This is where the buck stops. This is where policy happens. And you know, we have a lot of problems these days with tension between the citizens and the officers. And some of that is because law enforcement is the face of government they contact, and their frustration and their anger is often misdirected. And so to all the people that would want to legalize marijuana or would decriminalize it, I would encourage them to take the question away from the officer and place it towards the legislative bodies, which is city council, state house, and various other people that make ordinances and laws. When you get the opponents are going to come up with this parade of horribles. They'll say marijuana leads to this, marijuana leads to that. And I'm not here to spend a lot of time on why you should or shouldn't decriminalize it. I think everybody else is going to talk about that. My main point is that the sanctuary city has to go with it. But they're going to come up with this marijuana and say, it leads to this, it leads to that, it leads to this. Fine. Regulate the horribles. But when you start backing things up a few notches, it would be like banning alcohol because it leads to DWIs. It might not. That depends upon the individual person. There's a lot of people that are responsible. And when you start backing it up like that, you're in the exact same situation of marijuana when they say, well, if you let people smoke pot, this is what they're going to end up doing. Same thing. Maybe, maybe not. But you're taking away, you're punishing an entire class for a few bad actors when you do that. You're going to have a public comment period. I understand, and I heard some comments about email boxes blowing up and exploding. And so there's some question as to what the people of Rolla want, and I think that's what y'all are all trying to find out as much as anything, is what does your constituents want as well as what is a good idea. And I'd say you already have that mandate. About a year ago, there was a movement to oust Dan Jones from council because the voters wouldn't do it, so they went to the courts to do it. And among the public discussion was his position on marijuana. Marijuana was intertwined in those discussions. The reaction of the community is these new board members. And these new elections were energized by the marijuana vote, by the cannabis industry, by people who wanted to see more lenient laws on cannabis. And so I'd say you already have that mandate. You can try to sample the vote with listening to who talks the loudest. You can try to count your emails. But the ultimate measure of what they want is who voted, is the elections. The polls, they might do a little bit better job than emails, but nevertheless, the best measure is the people who turned out, the people who stood up to be counted. This is the body they voted for. And this body has gone more pro-cannabis than it has been in the past. And it was a reaction in part to this last ouster of Dan Jones. So you have opportunity here today, next week, next meeting, whenever you start drafting your ordinances. You have an opportunity to lead. You have an opportunity to take the high road. You have an opportunity to abolish a crime that doesn't need to be a crime. Arguably, you have a duty to follow a mandate that's already been given. And to make Lance's job easier, my suggestion is you just point someone to spearhead, talk to San Francisco, talk to some of the cities that have had the immigrant ordinance, ask them, what were your problems? What did you have to overcome? What were the internal politics? How did the local law enforcement react to that? What was your ultimate ordinance? And then you bring that ordinance to Mr. Thurman and work together on drafting one that will pass Rolla. That's all. I hope I kept it down to 5 minutes.
I got a question.
Sure.
I'm intrigued by a few things that you said, but in all honesty, I would look to San Francisco for absolutely nothing.
Well,
You could have picked a different place, but my God, San Francisco.
It was in the news last week, and
Okay, but here's where I'm a little bit intrigued. You basically say that we can tell the police not to basically enforce the law, and a sanctuary city, any way you cut it, is somebody snubbing their nose at the law. So help me with the next point. Every person up here, and that chief of police and every officer, took an oath of office. And that oath of office includes blah, 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 upholding the laws of the state of Missouri, blah, blah, blah. How do you square that? How could anyone up here look that officer, that chief in the eye and says, Chief, forget that oath you took, don't enforce the law?
well, that was...
How can we do that?
That was kind of a problem I had with all the sanctuary concepts. It was a problem I had when the sheriff says we weren't going to enforce gun control. It was a problem I had when the city said we're going to give safe sanctuary to immigrants. But you look back in the sheriff of one of these counties in Virginia, I think it was, and he also had a duty to the Constitution. He didn't believe in that law. And I think you're right, that has to be...
But he snubbed his nose. I mean,
Yeah,
he
he
could
did
go
snub
forward.
his
There's some that snub their nose this way, some there's... But at the end of the day, you're asking people that took oaths of office to enforce the law. You know, the answer to this whole thing is real simple. The state law has to change in the federal law. So I don't know why the Rolla has to be the lightning rod, but be that as it may, how do you expect us to tell them or any one of these people to say, that oath you took is meaningless, don't follow the law? How do we do that?
Well, are you talking about how do you can legally do it or just on a moral level?
Both.
Well, on a moral level...
If you don't justify it on a moral basis, then the other one's academic.
Right, right. I mean, but on a moral call, that's your job as a policymaker to decide what to do morally.
To pick and choose the laws?
No, to decide what the moral high ground is. But legally, there is a model out there. I think it is legal only because I
You're
saw...
picking a model because San Francisco says, kiss my ass to everybody.
No, I'm picking a model because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld their ordinance and said it was legal. It's possible to do that.
I have a question, Herman. I'll happily take a look at any ordinance that you send me or suggest. The main distinction that I'm going to struggle with and trying to assume that we can do that, though, is whereas the city of San Francisco is a separate entity from the federal government,
Yeah.
the city of Rolla is a political subdivision of the state of Missouri. We are essentially the same as the state of Missouri, and the state of Missouri is what gives us our authority to speak. So if you can give me a suggestion how to deal with that, I will happily look at it.
Well, that's a good point, and that's what I was saying. It was federal law, and that doesn't apply, and it was immigrants, and that doesn't apply. But nevertheless, we have some cities out there that took leadership responsibility for what they thought were wrong and unjust laws, whether you agree with that law or not, whether you think that the sheriff should or shouldn't enforce gun control, whether you think that the city should or shouldn't have sanctuary. That was a city that took the moral high ground and blazed the trail anyway.
And I'm perfectly fine with that.
And you might be in that boat. If you adopt sanctuary city, you might have a lot of legal battles. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
The answer is to change the law at the state level. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the solution.
That's the solution. It has to start somewhere.
That's right. We can make a statement here by doing it.
Absolutely.
I'm not willing to step on that oath that I took.
Stop cussing and stop kicking the can.
So, but thank you for, you've given us things to look at. Thank you for that.
Anything else?
I'd like to see us, if we have a number of proposals, this is also talking to our attorney, I know Jody's talking with him now, but if we see proposals for what's possible, I'd like to see this one laid out very clearly as an opportunity to decide whether we want to go that path or not, vote on it or not, but that path, I'd like to see it laid out clearly, and we can consider all the other ones too, but I would like to see that as part of what's being proposed to
Well,
us.
I think you can do that one of two ways. You can either delegate a council person as to be the point person to contact San Francisco and all these places, or you can go back to that outside council budget and hire someone.
Right.
Well, there's a
But
third
I
option.
think the
No,
council-
hold on. There's a third option. We have a city attorney. They could figure that out. We don't need freelancing around here. We got an attorney. We'll sign, please look into it.
I mean, the question I have is our city attorney on board to actually look at all down the ways that we have possibilities, or is it like based on what City Hall wants, we'll just discover what that is as opposed to seeing all the options? That's my concern, so I would like to see this option. We saw that today. We already saw it today, so we want to see all the options.
You didn't see that today.
Oh, it felt like.
I'm sorry it felt that way, but it certainly wasn't that.
Okay, it just felt that way by the way it came out. That's all it needed to be.
Again, I understand, and I apologize if it came that way, but it certainly wasn't that. I can't say it any more clearly. It wasn't that.
Okay, well then I'd like to see this one.
Okay, so
explore
at the
all of
end
it.
of the day, it's really what the majority of the council feels in the direction that the majority gives us. So give it some thought. In 2 weeks, we start the conversation. Tell us how you want to proceed. At the end of the day, you're the ones that make the decision.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else that would, yes, ma'am?
My name is Tara Honor. My name is Tara Honor. All right. I believe
last city council meeting, there was a question of who wrote the citizens resolution? Who is Rolla for Progress? We are Rolla for Progress. The people who are saying we want to take care of each other, who's saying yes, we're getting angry because we don't want to have to ask permission for our human dignity, for our right to health care, food, shelter, utilities. We're tired of being criminalized. And we came together by several hundred to march in the streets saying, there's problems. There's problems with police brutality. There's problems with racism. Where was your moral high ground then about the police code of conduct? Did you issue any kind of statement that that's not going to be allowed here in Rolla? Even though people stood up and spoke about things that happened here in Rolla with citizens in the police force. Where was your moral high ground there and wanting them to stay to their oath of office? But no. When we say there are other avenues of possibility, there's a moral high ground. No, 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 no. We're tired of hearing no. We want solutions. And that citizens' resolution offered steps to discussion. Tonight, there's no way we're going to get to all that with just 2 minutes a person. So again, I would like to call for citizens' committees to look into these problems and for us to start showing some compassion and looking for solutions, rather than our egos getting in the way and getting agitated when we hear from the public. And I am very thankful for those on the council tonight who have offered to listen to citizens either here on the phone or through email. And I'm really glad that Rolla Cannabis is asking for committee members to come into the neighborhoods and see what's really going on. And I would like to see that. I would like to see more of that, more compassion in Rolla. Thank you.
I only need like 20 seconds. My name's Daniel Jones. I just asked that if you're going to have any conversation that has to do with cannabis, that next time you guys, if you have the information at City Hall, please give that to us, because we could really use that information. That was super hurtful from my community that you guys held that back. That was not communicated to the people that we speak to, our city council people. From now on, if you're going to have a conversation and it's going to involve my community and the things that I stand for, please bring it all forward, because we are not hiding anything. So please, Lance Thurman, don't hide anything from us. I also suggest that this council please look into other council. That was absolutely hurtful. Thank you very much.
Any other citizen comments? Yes, ma'am.
Back there.
My name is Joe Whitby. I did not intend to speak tonight, but I find myself here. My husband and I moved here at the end of December. We would not have moved here had we known what was going on. We did not
Excuse me,
move.
miss, can you speak up a little louder?
I will try. I have spastic dysphonia, so I do have a little bit of an issue that way. I said my husband and I would not have moved here to retire. We would not have moved here had we known that there were people who were pushing to make this a sanctuary city. We lived in St. Charles County. We thought it best to move to the country. And now we find this. And this is our first meeting. Not been here before. I was shocked what I saw, and I'm sorry if I go over 3 minutes. Somebody can tell me. I'm not checking it. I was appalled with what I saw online this week. I'm not a big person on social media, yet what I saw, and I'm sorry if I cry, I saw terrible things. 2 women have apologized, not for what they've done, what they did. I don't know if all of you saw that. I don't know if you care what you saw. It was horrendous. What if you were on the end of that? What if you had been said, those things said about you? Just what? I don't even know Miss Bowen. And I felt so sorry for her to have to put up with that. And then I saw, thank you, honey, I saw that guy.
Waxy Brown.
You're not Waxy. Waxy's a cartoon character. Okay, so, see, he doesn't respect me either. He won't let me talk. I saw on his website, I watched his rant. I watched the whole thing. It was hard to watch because he would fade in and out with his thoughts. But he said terrible things. You can shake your head and you can disrespect me and
I'm not
snicker.
trying to disrespect
And
you.
shame on you. Then zip it. Okay, so he was terrible. He said awful things, and I felt like he was threatening her, threatening Miss Bowen. And he would directly say things, and he would be all chill, because he's chill, you know, until he wasn't, and then he would hit something. And he would look in the camera, and it was all about Carolyn Bowen, and he would say terrible things. Nobody here tonight said anything about that, and I'm sure some of you saw it. I don't know you people. I haven't lived here that long. All I know is I don't live in a sanctuary city. I don't.
Absolutely not.
We bought a home with the intent of living here for the next 25 years. And we find this. See, you can't even speak. They talk like this because we don't matter. We don't matter. I don't know. Maybe we don't matter. Maybe we really don't. I don't know.
I think what they're saying is
I saw someone say that there was a question. I hate to even say this in public. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. I saw a council member having a conversation with someone online, and it was something about someone commented, and in their comments, it appeared they denigrated sex workers. And a member of this council replied back, sex workers are honest workers. And I thought, what have I moved to? Is prostitution legal here? Is that what they're saying? And that's a council member.
Yes, it's me, and sex work is real work. It's absolutely hard work, and it's work that people work for, and it's work that is we're paying for.
Look, wait a minute, time out.
I would like for her to say it
Excuse me,
again,
miss.
because
It's them, they, not her, and she. Thank
Miss
you very
Lyon.
much. It's Mix Lions. Thank you
Whatever it
very
is,
much.
everybody was treated with respect here, with no argument. Let the woman speak. And then when she's done speaking, if you would like to say something, fine, but let's not interrupt.
I think we said
I would be
personal
okay.
attacks aren't okay as
I
well.
would be
Personal
okay
attacks
if
is the
she
line.
said-
And there might have been one of them, so let's be aware.
We're going to listen to her.
I would be
Let's not
okay
have
if
any
she
personal
went
attacks.
ahead and she said, repeat it again, what she said. I will be quiet and let her repeat that, because this is going out to the public and it will be online. Would you please repeat all you said about the sex workers, which is a prostitute?
Yes, sex workers are real workers who put their lives on the line and their bodies on the line in a capitalistic system that makes them feel as if they have no other choice, especially in places of poverty. We live in one of the poorest congressional districts in the United States.
Could you speak up a little bit so we make sure everyone hears you? We hear her. No, I mean online.
I think everybody can hear me, ma'am. Thank
I'm having
you.
trouble hearing you. Maybe it's because I'm older, but I want to make sure you're coming clear.
I think I'm coming loud and clear. Sex work is real work.
Now, this is where we are, people. This is where
This
we
is
are.
who I am, and I invited everybody to come to my online page and know all of this about me, and I still got elected, so thank you very much.
I know you collected 33 votes. Okay, go you.
Is this
But
like
anyway,
personal attacks
this
again?
is-
I don't know where we're going.
This is
Will you
my
let the woman
turn.
speak?
It's my turn.
Not for personal attacks. That's what the mayor said last meeting.
David, would you settle down?
Please.
Let the mayor run the
It's okay.
meeting.
But enforce personal attacks only on some people?
David.
That's their job.
Yes?
That's
Are
their
you
job.
kidding?
Okay, so to all of you
We're
ladies-
about 30 seconds from adjourning this meeting.
Okay, I thank you very much. I don't know what we've gotten into. I do expect, because of this, I do expect personal attacks. I would like to read something quickly, and this is Psalm 91. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with thy feathers, His feathers, and under his wing shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and thy buckler. I believe that, and that's why I stood up here tonight.
And remember, that's 1% of the population, the rest of it's us.
I believe that too.
Can you state what ward you live in too, just so we're aware of which council people are your council folks?
That would be
Ward
Ms.
4.
Everly and Mr. Mush.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, I don't know anybody personally, but I don't know if that means we need to go home and we need to consider safety changing our numbers, because I know what happened to other with the council members, and I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody. I always vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I support the police.
Would anybody else?
We have more people in here that want to talk.
Again, we have a number of things. If you can please keep it to 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
Just out of necessity, I'm going to start to do that.
Absolutely. My name's Samara Weber. I live at 10... Samara, S-A-M-A-R-A. Last name Weber with 2 B's. I live at 10485 County Road 3110, Townhouse C.
Say that again.
I'm sorry, 10485 County Road 3110.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So first, I want to say, Lance, I so wish you and I could be on the same page. You did something for me. I'll never forget. I know you have a heart for addicts, and I know he does too. And I really wish you guys could come to a meeting of the minds. I like you guys both a lot. Here's something, though, that I've learned, we present a problem, and then we present a solution. And I know, Mr. Schott, you were saying, look, if anyone's got any ideas, let's start presenting them. Let's get the gears turning. I can really empathize with just about everyone in all their situations. Someone that's known someone who's died from addictions that started with marijuana, and so you place those two together. I get that. I totally get that. I've done addictions recovery counseling for the city for on and off now for about 8 years, as I am a recovered opiate addict. I know there's a lot of disagreement on where this starts and who needs to be the trailblazer. Here's what I do know. What I saw Sunday, what I saw yesterday, I've been to churches on and off, Sunday after Sunday, sitting in pews. What I saw this Sunday was the most Jesus-based service in servitude that I've ever seen. How many of you would be excited to get out on a Sunday around noon during a heat advisory and pick up heroin needles and trash in a neighborhood that's not even your own? I live probably out by a lot of you guys, okay? I'm in a little townhouse, though. I don't make a whole lot, but I'm very fortunate to live in a place that's a little bit safer than the place that I visited on Sunday. These people need help. They're not getting that help in jail, okay? We need to fix this addictions problem. And you have all these people coming forward that have firsthand experience with that and are saying this isn't fixing it. I have so much respect for you. I know you're sitting in my councilwoman seat, so I thought you were actually her. Everly, is it Council? Everly, okay. Who was the one that said they want to understand? You said you wanted to understand
You got
it
about
more.
20 seconds, miss.
Okay.
Speed it up.
Here's what I would like to suggest. Some alternatives to the law that you guys have proposed as far as the imposition of fines. I would like you to consider reducing it to something that is more comparable among this list to the offense. Reducing it, for example, to like a driver's license ticket. Not operating a motor vehicle with a driver's license is $50.50. Not smoking marijuana without a marijuana license is not as dangerous as operating a motor vehicle without a license. So I would ask that you would consider reducing it. Also, I would ask that if a person is not able to pay that fine, you would consider allowing them to volunteer in the community, whether it's going out and picking up someone else's heroin needles volunteering at Grace food distribution. There's so many opportunities to give back to addicts. This would be a way to truly help. Let them see that that money is going towards something to better the community and help the addicts in it. On top of that, and I know there might be some laws, but I just want to get your gears turning. On top of that, maybe consider that people who do get fined for possessing marijuana without a card, you would consider setting up a fund that would go towards funding people being able to get their card so long as they qualified for it. I would just ask that you guys start considering other alternatives. Lance, just please put your heart into this. I know when you put your heart into things, you can stuff happen. So I'm just asking everyone to just put their heart into this and realize it's not as cut and dry and black and white. And I do have to say this, Jesus came for the sick, not for the healthy. Jesus said, go be my hands and feet, go be a servant to all, to the oppressed, to the underprivileged, to the fatherless, to those in jail. That's what he called for us to do, and that's exactly what we did on Sunday, and I'm just asking you to help us further that movement so that every Sunday we're going out and being Jesus' hands and feet. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
I'm Megan Johnson, a lot of you know me, 1601 Broadway. I've come to city council meetings for 2 years, and I feel like every time someone gets up there and speaks their truth, none of you say anything, and it drives me crazy. Some of you do. Some of you will say things, but here are people pouring out their hearts and nothing. And it really aggravates me. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, is I want to see our council be more empathetic instead of just sitting there and just okay, you pick up heroin needles. Okay, that's next person. And I'm specifically talking to my ward, these two right here, which I talked to you, Ann, earlier. And we talked about decriminalization, which for me, I am for decriminalization. I don't do any of that. But at the same time, I feel like that should be something that is, out there. And I talked to you on the phone and you told me, well, we don't really, decriminalization isn't something really to be concerned about because we only have 3 people that really a month that, see trouble because of it. Yeah, it was. And that's disgusting because 3 people are still 3 people. There are 3 people that have to deal with being criminalized over a plant. It's disgusting, and it bothers me that, that's something that you would say. And your whole ward, a lot of your ward, 66% of people voted for medical marijuana. We all know that. And that's more than any election. And we're all up here well, should we decriminalize? I don't know. Research it. You guys have had time to research it. All the rest of the country has been researching it. What are you guys doing? You're just sitting here. So it's frustrating, and I don't mean to sound crass. I just wish you guys would be more empathetic, look at all avenues, and just be open-minded. And my husband wants to talk as well, so I'm going to slide over because I know it's a long way.
About 10 or 12 sentences. That's one little statement. It's not really about any of the issues discussed tonight, but it's rather about the procedures in which some of these motions are hurt and everything. So, to examples, COVID-19 and police helmets, 2 hot-button topics that have recently seen debate in this room. However, I'm not here to discuss these issues, but rather the procedure in which they were handled. I watched as citizens filled the room looking forward to voicing their opinion of how these issues should be handled to the representatives and leaders of our community. The concerned citizens were eventually granted this opportunity. Unfortunately, in both cases, this opportunity came after the council vote had already taken place, essentially rendering the citizens' voice mute. The citizens of this community were essentially cut out of the decision-making equation that affects us all. To me, this is unacceptable. Everyone in this room making decisions tonight was elected to your seat by the very same people you decided to ignore until it was too late. Citizen communication on any motion needs to be heard prior to the vote taking place and not after the fact, when at that point it is nothing more than a masquerade.
Right.
These people have taken time away from their careers and families to come here and be heard, but instead are made a mockery of by local officials as these motions and ordinances are passed without any concern for why these people are actually here. Everyday citizens and elected officials alike, we are all living in this community together, so hopefully we the people can address this problem together, and moving forward, we can start to give every citizen a voice in the way this country was intended to be. And then I was...
Just clarify, you're making reference to an action the council did?
Just a procedure.
Yeah, which one in particular did we take action on without listening to the citizens?
Well, the one was the original COVID-19, when you guys had the first reading, second reading, bypassed everything.
Okay, the one back in February or March.
Right, that was one example. And the other one, last meeting, you got the police helmet motion.
Tell me what troubled you about the police helmet? And why do you think that we didn't listen to it?
Yeah, it's not, like I said in the beginning, I'm not trying to talk about issues, I'm trying to talk the procedure. So whenever I was here for the helmet situation, it was presented, the chief presented his motion, you guys debated amongst yourselves in front of everyone, and then you voted on it, and then an hour later you have citizen communication like right now, and then people got to come up and express their opinion. And I just feel that you should hear before the vote, you know what I mean? Like, let us be
I think you're
involved.
right on the first issue. Here's where I think you're wrong on the second, okay? That was a routine purchase that some people chose to use as part of the cause. The militarization, the riot gear description, and all that. If you look at the write-up that the city presented, those words were never used. This wasn't riot gear. Just because some citizen decided to call it riot gear didn't mean it was riot gear. And the chief went through a very thorough explanation on what this is. This is replacement of everyday gear that we have. It's not common for this body to ask for citizen feedback on that. If he chose to replace the 9mm with a .40 caliber, do people expect us to weigh in on that?
If it's costing our taxpayer dollars, then sure, you should open the floor and say, hey, does anyone want to put input into this? That's all I'm at. Like, I'm not trying to debate that police helmet issue. That's not what I'm trying to, I have no issue with the outcome of that. That's not what I want.
I agree with you on certain things, and I guess, but other courses, other decisions are almost in that routine category, and I just don't know that it's practical to have a public input on every dollar and every decision.
I mean, are you just saying it's not practical because of time constraints? Is that what?
I just don't think it's practical.
I mean, what's the reason behind that, I guess, is like the reasoning behind why you don't think it's practical?
Our government is based on a representative democracy. These people up here are elected to represent the will of the people, okay? You can't take every issue to a vote of the public.
Well, I'm not asking for a vote of the public. I'm just asking for you all to open your ears to let us come up here like I am right now and speak. Before the vote takes place. That's my whole point. I mean, that's...
I understand that, and on certain things, I would agree with you, you're absolutely right. But on using helmets as an example, I think
it was only the most recent thing I came up with my head when I was writing this. It was not...
Okay.
This was not intended to pick on the police helmet issue or the COVID issue.
Yeah,
it was the two most recent that the first two that came in my head, like, hey, these are, because this isn't, I've watched these meetings for several years, and this isn't the first two times it's happened. I mean, and I don't have time to comb through every YouTube video and pick you out examples, so these were the first two that came to my head.
We agree with your point. Citizens need to be involved, citizens need to be heard.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm just asking to kind of just let people talk before the vote takes place. That's really all this was about. You know, like I said, it's not to discuss any issue in particular, just the procedure. And I do have one question about it. Is that procedure of the way the citizen comment takes place, is that something how long has that been in place? Is that something that changes? How does that?
Citizens' comments are not required by law. Okay? So just understand that.
So you're doing
under the sunshine, the citizens have a right to have the availability, describe it, John, the availability to see what their elected bodies are doing. But it's not required. Now, I say that, but by no means translate that to mean I don't believe in it. I do believe in it. And I've been a council person for 20 years, and it's always been part of the meeting, and I don't have any reason to change that.
But I think you misunderstood my question. My question was, the procedure of it being at the end? Is it always been at the, after everything's over? Is it the
No.
last step? Or has
No,
that changed
very,
recently?
very long time ago, it was in the beginning. But again, we have now been taking citizen comments for a couple of hours. If they're always at the beginning, these people will be here till midnight. Now,
Didn't stop anybody from saying it.
I'm speaking.
Excuse me.
But the point is, let's come back to the point that we can agree on. Citizens should have an opportunity to speak and comment on an issue. So we try our best to not come to council and say, you need to do this and you need to do it now. I can tell you, I'm a little bit like Matt Crowell. Over 20 years, it was rare that I ever voted to waive the rules, because I believe very strongly that the citizens should have those 2 weeks.
Definitely.
So we don't do it out of practice. It does happen sometimes for various reasons. And back to the COVID, that action was taken that night, was not our intention to take action that night. That night, we brought something for the community to start to discuss. But whether the citizen comments at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, your point is well taken. We do want the opportunity for citizens to comment.
Okay.
Is that something we could see change? Where?
I have no intentions of changing it.
Okay, so if you have more people.
Now, is that up to your administration to change that rule, or is that up to the council?
As the presiding person of this, that is my prerogative, yes. I assure you, there will always be time for citizen comments. And just here tonight, you didn't see me cut anybody off after 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, I don't operate that way.
Right, it's just.
But don't expect me to put it at the front of the agenda. So I'm just being honest with you.
Well, no, I'm asking for.
But it'll always be on the agenda. I will assure you that.
But it
You have
would
my word on
be
that.
nice to have it before the vote. Is there a way that if you hear from more citizens, that you might reconsider?
No.
But in that, you just think as being the mayor, you're like, I'll have comments.
I'm basing my opinion on sitting here for 25 years and having a good sense of what works and doesn't work. So instead of quibbling, hold on, instead of quibbling on where in the meeting it is, let's discuss on what we agree. Citizens should have a comment. They should be able to comment before we take action.
Yes.
Okay, we agree on that.
Yes.
We agree on that.
absolutely. Let's do that. So
We
that's
agree on that.
something that's going to happen then.
Yes.
You're going to start taking.
And it's very rare, councils very rarely waive the rules.
Always.
No, that's not.
No, you just said before action.
Okay, well anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Okay. I lost track of where we're at here.
We're all done. Oh, just.
There are no comments for the good of the order. So, there you go. Okay, so we have 2 items for closed session. One deal with contract negotiations and real estate. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Make a motion. Second.
Roll call vote.
Ruder,
Chief,
Yes.
Murphy,
can you see if
Higgins.
Francine hung in there?
Higgins,
She left? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Bolin,
Yes.
Lyons,
Yes.
Kraut,
Yes.
Mush,
Yes.
Bush,
He said yes.
Lawrence,
Yay.
Sot,
About me.
Ordinance, Everly,
Yes.
11 A's.
If anybody wants cookies now,
This place is in the hell in a handbasket.
Won't make.